those years as a superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 776, Luxurious Lunch and Hesitation to Speak. Betty woke up by smelling the aroma of food. She rubbed her swollen forehead and recalled her previous loss of composure. Betty stood up, walked to the mirror and said to herself, "Betty Ross, you are not a little girl anymore. You can't be so willful." After saying this, she patted her cheek. She pushed open the door of the room and walked downstairs. She vaguely heard the sound of conversation coming from the restaurant. She stood in the stairwell and listened for a while. Dr. Banner heard the sound from upstairs, and he focused his eyes on the stairwell. "Betty, it's time to eat. To be honest, you should come and try these foods. The taste is great." Betty walked down from upstairs with some curiosity. "When did you learn to cook, Bruce?" Of course, it was not Professor Bruce Banner who cooked. In fact, the only dish he could cook was toasted sliced toast with jam. If this is also called a dish. Lee Ji was busy in the kitchen. He hummed a little tune and made various dishes happily. The food was purchased from all over the world through the space gate. There are crabs from the North Sea, vegetables from Asia, beef from Australia, and chocolate just purchased from Belgium. There are also salmon from Norway and caviar from Russia. The food prepared by Lee Ji today is unusually rich, and he bought it with his own money. Banner didn't know why Lee Ji was so happy to go out for a ride. But there was no reason for Bruce Banner to refuse delicious food. If Lee Ji didn't come to cook, Dr. Banner would have to find a way to buy takeout. He could only try to make fried bread slices and fried eggs with salad dressing and arugula. When a person is in a bad mood, giving her these things will only make her mood worse. Lee Ji stopped Dr. Banner, who wanted to do so. And he said seriously with a smile, "Good food gives people a good mood. If you want to cheer up Miss Betty quickly, you need to prepare a hearty meal for her. Don't you think so?" Lan, who had just returned, glanced at Lee Ji and blushed inexplicably. But it returned to normal very quickly, and Dr. Banner didn't notice anything unusual. Lan curled her lips. "Whatever. I don't want to eat anything tonight." After that, she ran back to the room that Dr. Banner prepared for her. Dr. Banner looked at Lee Ji in surprise. "What's wrong with her?" Lee Ji shrugged. "Maybe she just ate too much?" "Huh?" Dr. Banner had a question mark on his face. Anyway, under Lee Ji's cooking, a very rich lunch began to come out one by one. The main course has seafood and steak as options. The medium rare roasted beef tenderloin, T-bone, is seasoned with rosemary, thyme, black pepper and other seasonings. Cut it with a knife, and the gravy flows. Various plant spices mixed with a rich meaty aroma directly hit the nose. It is the favorite of carnivores. There is also baked king crab. Lee Ji took out all the crab meat and put it all into the crab shell. Sprinkle a lot of high-quality mozzarella cheese and bake it together. The aroma of milk is overflowing, and the crab meat is chewy. In order to set off such a main course, Lee Ji's appetizers are also not sloppy. A mouthful of black caviar is paired with a small sip of vodka. It can open people's taste buds, but the taste is not too strong. There is also a vegetable salad for the two ladies between the appetizer and the main course. It is very simple but different from ordinary Western salads. Because Lee Ji added rennet tofu to this vegetable salad, the sauce is a basic combination of olive oil vinegar. But it is mixed with Japanese sauce and a small amount of Chinese aged vinegar. Make it taste more oriental. There is also a salmon roll made of smoked salmon. In the middle of the salmon roll, add the mayonnaise that you whipped on the spot, and decorate the top with some black caviar. The smoked salmon roll for each person is not large, and it is also the amount that can be eaten in one bite. This kind of food is used to whet the appetite. Of course, a hearty lunch cannot be complete without a good dessert. Chocolate mousse cake and passion fruit pudding can be paired according to your own preferences. The dense and mellow chocolate mousse can enhance people's pleasure. The refreshing and sweet passion fruit pudding will dissolve the greasy feeling brought by the whole lunch dishes. Lee Ji also purchased a suitable tablecloth for this lunch. He found that the tablecloth in the farmhouse was too old-fashioned. A white checkered and black striped tablecloth was relaid. The white and bright plates with gold edges were filled with various delicacies, and the silver carved knives and forks were low-key and stylish. Watching Lee Ji do all this, Bruce Banner was a little dumbfounded. Although Dr. Banner is also a master who has seen and eaten, and he also attended many grand parties or dinners in the past. But he never thought that such a grand and formal banquet could be reproduced in his own restaurant. Shouldn't that be done by a whole team of chefs and service teams? Why can one person complete it? And it is done so well. This has exceeded the specifications of a family banquet, and Michelin restaurants can only do so much? I don't know what to say. Jason, if you concentrate on being a chef, you will definitely achieve greater success than if you're an ordinary businessman or hero. Dr. Banner was praising sincerely. Li Ji shrugged. It's like this, chef is my main job. Superhero is just a part-time job. I'm just a little busy with my part-time job now. When the world no longer needs me to be a hero, I will open a restaurant of my dreams. Live a quiet life with Lan. Banner looked at Li Ji seriously. Are you considering retirement now? Li Ji said without comment, life is like this. No one can live without anyone else. Becoming a hero is just a coincidence. There are talented people in every generation, and each of them leads the trend for decades. We are just a wave in the tide of history. We just do our own thing. When we are caught up by the next wave, we should abdicate and let others do the work, instead of clinging to power. Li Ji's words were very much to Banner's liking. Dr. Banner said, you are right. We are just a connecting board of an era. When this era smoothly transitions to the new era, maybe we should withdraw. Li Ji stretched out his finger. Even if you don't want to retire, you can't. You might be knocked to the ground and thrown into the trash like garbage. It's not difficult to choose whether you want to retire with honor or be abandoned by the times. People who cling to power but refuse to admit that they can't keep up with the times are destined to be tragic. For example, Schmidt, the current leader of Hydra. The times are changing too fast, and he has lagged behind the times for too long. Hydra is destined to be led into the ditch by him. Maybe if Schmidt hadn't appeared, Hydra would have been a big trouble for the world. But when he appeared, Hydra's defeat was already doomed. He made one stupid move after another, and even his occasional flash of inspiration could hardly reverse the defeat. It's not because we are targeting him, but because he has made a mistake in the overall policy. If he is willing to learn to delegate power and hand over power to the right people to manage, maybe it would be better. Banner smiled at what Li Ji said. If villains know how to give up power, then they can't become villains. Only those who have a strong desire for power and are unwilling to let go can become the world's biggest villains. Li Ji agreed with this. Yes, I agree with this very much. That's why Schmidt foolishly wants to provoke the relationship between you and Tony. Let your conflict intensify, and even send assassins to attack Ms. Betty. Although we don't know the specific operation method, they want to put the blame on others. And the target of the blame is likely to be Tony, or the US military. For example, use you. The Hulk is actually an uncontrollable force as an excuse. Use Betty to contain you. With the current bad reputation of the military, maybe you will really believe this. Then go crazy with the government, and finally face Captain Rogers and Tony, and end up killing both sides. Li Ji said these words with a serious face. He spoke with certainty, as if everything he said was true and would happen. This made Banner a little confused about whether what Li Ji said was true or false. Those people were obviously killed by him. How did Nightwalker know all this? Did he find a survivor? Dr. Banner asked in confusion. Is everything you said true? Li Ji looked at Dr. Banner very seriously and nodded vigorously. It's all true. Believe me, I am not wrong. Banner was a little puzzled by Li Ji's exaggerated actions at first, but then he quickly understood. Yes, what you said is indeed very possible. After saying this, Dr. Banner turned his head towards the stairwell and said, Betty, it's time to eat. Seriously, you should come and try these foods. The taste is amazing. Appetizer, black caviar with a sip of vodka, smoked salmon rolls with homemade refreshing mayonnaise garnished with black caviar salad, Asian-style tofu salad. Main course, grilled T-bone beef tenderloin, which contains the dual taste of tenderloin, fillet, and outer rib, sirloin. The baked king crab is even more luxurious. The crab meat of the whole crab is removed and put into the crab shell and baked with cheese. Even the dessert is made with great care. Lamb finally ate this lunch. After all, you can't be hard on your stomach, right? And just as Li Ji said to Dr. Banner before, good food can bring people a good mood. The more calories explode, the more excited you are. Is this probably why many people are obsessed with fried chicken? After eating the meal made by Li Ji, Betty was obviously in a much better mood. She looked at Banner, then at Lee Ji, and seemed to be hesitant to speak. P.S. Thank you to the book friend Jaskasv for the reward of 50,000 starting coins. Thank you very much. Thank you to the book friends who have been with you all the way. Without your support, I would not have persisted until now. Thank you. Chapter 777. Who is behind this? The lunch was a great success for both the host and the guests. Humans are very strange animals. The foods that humans like to eat and that can bring them happiness and pleasure are usually defined as unhealthy foods. For example, people are crazy about all kinds of fried foods, such as fried chicken and French fries. These cheap and simple fast foods can touch people's hearts most directly, and most people think they are delicious. And when eating, they will bring a sense of spiritual and physical satisfaction. The same is true for chocolate and cream cakes, which will make people unable to stop eating until all the food in front of them is eaten up. Or there are seasonal delicacies such as crab roe and crab paste. Even if you order the same bowl of plain noodles with lard are 10 times more delicious than plain noodles with blended oil. These foods that make people feel satisfied have one characteristic, that is, they are high in calories, and many of these foods are difficult to digest, which increases the burden on people's bodies. But people's taste buds and brains are always unable to resist these things. They please the brain and body like drugs, making people like them from the mouth and tongue, and feel that all the meaning of life comes from being able to enjoy them. How explosive is your mood? Many times it depends on how explosive the calories of the food are. If a person eats low-calorie food for a long time, his temper will be very bad, but vice versa. Maybe this can explain why fat people have better tempers than thin people. Just like now, Betty had a lunch with explosive calories. In fact, since Banner's accident, Betty rarely eats decent food. Of course, it doesn't mean that she doesn't eat, but that she eats simply. In most cases, it's just a simple deal, which can ensure daily nutritional needs, but that's all. She hasn't felt happy and satisfied from food intake like this for a long time, and getting satisfaction from food is the oldest nature of human beings. It is an instinct that has evolved for millions of years. Rooted in blood DNA. A hearty lunch made Betty's spirits much better. At least she had a smile on her face again, which was much better than the previous collapse. Betty looked at Lee Ji. Thank you, Jason. Bruce invited you to be his guest and also troubled you to prepare lunch. Lee Ji smiled nonchalantly. Betty, you're welcome. To be honest, this is also for my own sake. When I saw Dr. Banner preparing fried bread slices and salad to send us off, I felt that I couldn't let him go on. I would be angry if he ate this for such a good lunch. Lee Ji said these words seriously, making Lan, Banner and Betty laugh. With the food and the deliberate lightheartedness of the topic, the atmosphere at the table seemed very good. Betty cut a small piece of chocolate mousse for herself with a fork, put it in her mouth and waited for the chocolate mousse to slowly melt in her mouth. It was delicate and silky, and the touch was like slender fingers sliding over fine silk. The aroma of chocolate diffused in her mouth and nose. While enjoying the wonderful taste and flavor of the chocolate mousse, Betty was also hesitant. She didn't know how to start the topic. She looked at Lee Ji and then at Banner, wanting to say something but stopping. But her expression didn't hide anything. Dr. Banner had seen that Betty had something to say. Now the atmosphere was just right for Betty to say what she wanted to say. So Dr. Banner said, Betty, what's wrong? Betty struggled for a moment, but finally said, Bruce, I didn't mean to eavesdrop on your conversation just now, but what about the Hydra you mentioned before? What exactly is going on with them kidnapping me and framing me? Betty asked apologetically, saying that she didn't mean to eavesdrop on their conversation, because she knew that Bruce Banner would definitely not want her to know about these things. Because it would make her more worried. Bruce Banner is a gentle man. Betty knew it more than 10 years ago. She knows Dr. Banner very well. But Betty doesn't know Lee Ji. Although Lee Ji looks very friendly, and there is a saying that goes, men who cook well are generally not bad. Of course, these words may not be particularly suitable for Lee Ji, well, at least in some aspects. It is useless to talk to Betty about the truth. A woman like her knows very well what should be done and what should not be done. That's why she is so tired. She is suppressing herself. Instead of talking to her about the truth and making her feel more stressed. In fact, the best way is to let her find some problems herself and then vent her anger. Well, find a suitable object to vent. So the conversation between Lee Ji and Banner in the restaurant just now seemed to be a very normal private conversation between the two. But in fact, Lee Ji didn't say it to Dr. Banner at all. It was for Betty, who happened to be standing in the stairwell at the time. So Lee Ji didn't lower the volume at the time. Just like a normal conversation, Betty could hear it clearly in the direction of the stairwell. She could hear everything that Lee Ji and Banner talked about. At that time, Banner didn't realize that Lee Ji did it on purpose until Lee Ji nodded to Banner with an extremely exaggerated expression. The honest Dr. Banner realized that Lee Ji was acting. Banner didn't notice any flaws in this natural acting. Banner didn't notice any flaws when they were face to face, so Betty, who only heard the voice, didn't notice anything wrong. So she asked Lee Ji with some worry about Hydra and their plan to frame Banner. Did Hydra have a plan to capture Betty and frame others to cause conflicts between Banner and others? Lee Ji didn't know whether it did or not. But now that it has been said, then just take it as it has happened. It doesn't matter to Lee Ji anyway. Lan was holding her chin and eating passion fruit pudding in small bites while watching Lee Ji's performance. Although they have lived together for so long, this is the first time she feels that this man is so shameless. Lee Ji looked at Banner, and finally shook his head a little helplessly, and then said seriously, "Well, actually I have told Dr. Banner about this matter before. It's better not to hide it from you. Because some things can't be hidden." Betty nodded in response to Lee Ji's words. Lee Ji continued, "In fact, Dr. Banner has already explained the conflict between Dr. Banner and Tony Stark at Tony's wedding. In fact, I think Dr. Banner also told you that his original design had some problems. Although Tony changed the setting of the bomb without Dr. Banner's consent, it eventually led to tragedy. But Dr. Banner is more or less responsible in this. For example, if he had read the message Tony sent at the time." Dr. Banner nodded in response to Lee Ji's words. "I was a little arrogant, and I didn't think much of Tony at the time. This is my responsibility." Lee Ji continued to say to Betty, "In fact, although Dr. Banner accidentally became the Hulk, he was able to control it in the end. This at least proves that there is still hope. You don't have to worry too much about General Ross, Betty. Dr. Richards will return to Earth in April next year, and I believe that he and Dr. Banner can help General Ross together." Betty forced a smile and nodded. "We are actually just curious about who told you about Dr. Banner's accident. To be honest, how could it be just Rick Jones' investigation? Why didn't he find out the truth after all these years, but found out it's such a coincidence?" Lee Ji asked a question. "It happened to be the eve of Tony Stark's wedding, and he found out the truth and told you. And then you told Banner? If Dr. Banner didn't control the Hulk's power, he would be angry after hearing about it. If he even killed people at Tony's wedding, then the consequences." Lee Ji paused at the right time. Betty is not a stupid woman, but sometimes she doesn't think deeply about the possibilities behind a thing. She suddenly felt cold. Then maybe the whole world will be in turmoil. Yes. The people who delivered this message didn't know that Banner had controlled the Hulk, and they didn't know this news. If someone really did this, then they were using me and Rick Jones. Lee Ji nodded. "So we are sending people to investigate the mastermind behind giving Rick Jones this information. If we find this breakthrough point, then we can basically determine who did it." "What about Hydra?" Betty suddenly remembered this organization. "This organization has been wanted worldwide." Lee Ji spread his hands. "They are the most likely. I can reveal one thing to you, as long as Miss Betty promises not to tell anyone." Betty raised her hand. "I swear." "Well, actually some people including Tony Stark are conducting a commercial crackdown on Hydra. Captain Rogers is also inciting the wealthy businessmen he can incite. He intends to kill Hydra completely from the economic route. In the end, the snake will lose all nutrients and wither and die. This incident has forced Hydra into a hurry. Tony Stark is the vanguard of this operation and business, and the super high-speed rail project presided over by Dr. Bruce Banner is essentially a complete cut-off of Hydra's traditional industries. The two of them are thorns in Schmidt's eyes and thorns in his flesh. Until they are eliminated, there will be no peace. So we have basically locked our target on Hydra, which is the most likely one." Lee Ji said confidently. "They wish Dr. Banner and Tony Stark would fight each other. The more brutal the fight, the better, and it would be best if both sides were injured. In this way, they can easily come out to clean up the mess and get rid of both Tony and Banner. I think this is the plan." Betty clenched her fists. The two men she cherished most in her life. One was her father, and the other was Bruce Banner. She would not allow anyone to take away her love by such despicable means, especially using her to do this. Compared with what Tony did back then, what Hydra did now made her even more angry. She wanted to skin Schmidt and dismember him. Betty's finger bones began to turn white because she clenched her fists too tightly. Dr. Banner quietly gave Li Ji a thumbs up under the table. Lan, who was eating passion fruit pudding, could only hold the spoon in her mouth and support her cheeks with both hands. Alice, this man seemed to be getting more and more shameless. Was her choice wrong? Lan suddenly felt a little confused and regretful. Bermuda. Failed, and failed again. Red Skull Schmidt feels that nothing is going well now. If this continues, then he will really have no choice but to sit back and wait for death. It seems that there is always someone secretly against him. Although he has never seen this person, Schmidt is sure that such a person exists. He needs to find a way to do something to fight back. Let Quicksilver and Scarlet go. Cause some destruction and chaos, otherwise the world will be too quiet. Schmidt has made up his mind. Chapter 778. There are still many good people. Betty was very angry at herself. She was angry at herself for being so easily provoked and almost causing a tragedy. If Bruce Banner would still transform into the impulsive Hulk, perhaps things would have become irreversible now. If that were the case, Betty would feel guilty for the rest of her life. Fortunately, because Hydra's intelligence was inaccurate, they did not know that Banner could control his anger, which made the plan unsuccessful. Of course, Betty was even more angry at Hydra for using her as a gun. She was extremely angry, and this anger overwhelmed everything. Because Hydra's actions would cause chaos in the world in public. And when it comes to Betty personally, it's a bigger problem. Dr. Banner might die because of this incident, and General Ross would be in danger of becoming the Red Hulk because he could not get treatment. If Tony and Banner died, Dr. Richards's future whereabouts were unclear. Both of these results were extremely undesirable for Betty to see. In the final analysis, Betty was just a woman. No matter how strong and tolerant she was, her essence remained unchanged. Appropriate selfishness and self-protection are instincts rooted in genes. So Betty temporarily forgot what she had done to the arrogant Tony Stark. After all, it had already happened, and there was no point in holding on to it. The key factor that prompted Betty to think so was that she had another new target of hatred. She transferred her hatred for Tony Stark to him. And this target was called Hydra. When she was resting with Dr. Banner at night, Betty lay on Banner's chest and whispered, "Why is Hydra so bad? I just want to live an ordinary life, and they all want to mess things up." Dr. Banner really couldn't answer Betty's question. How to answer? Should I say, "Honey, I don't know either. All this is a play directed by Li Ji." As for whether Hydra is so bad, only God knows. Of course, this sentence cannot be said. If it is said, all the efforts made by Li Ji before will be in vain. So Dr. Banner could only sort out his thoughts, and after a long while he said, "Maybe this is why they are called villains. They destroy the peaceful and tranquil lives of most people and break the bottom line of most people. Whether it is the massacre of Jews in the past, or the extreme discrimination against mutants, etc. Only in this way can they bear the title of world villains." Dr. Banner was very glad that it was night and the lights were off in the room. Otherwise, he really couldn't do the kind of serious lies that Li Ji told, and his face was not red and breathless, and he remained calm in the face of millions of people. Anyway, when he said these words, Banner felt that his face was almost red. Dr. Banner's function was to pray that it would be better not to go to the hell of tongue pulling if he lied. If he really had to go, he could only find a way to break hell. Betty didn't know everything about Dr. Banner. She just lay on Banner's chest, drew circles on his chest with her fingers, and whispered, "They are so bad." Yes, yes. Dr. Banner felt a little guilty for no reason. Fortunately, Betty was also a little distracted at this time, and did not hear the tone of Dr. Banner. Betty continued, "Then you want to completely eliminate them, okay? Whether it is economic means, scientific means, or physical means." When she said the last sentence, Betty's voice suddenly rose, but it was not sharp. Instead, it sounded as nice as a bird song, and even sounded a little coquettish. But Banner knew that this was when Betty was very serious. Betty was very angry. Only when she was very serious and very angry would she speak in this coquettish tone. This is not pretending to be coquettish, but suppressing the anger in her heart. Since his girlfriend said so, could Bruce Banner not agree? Dare not agree? What's more, Hydra was not a good bird. So Dr. Banner would only say without hesitation, "Okay Betty, I promise you. I will eradicate this organization. With my greatest ability, whether it is intelligence or force, I will completely eliminate the existence of this organization on the earth in all senses." Dr. Banner made a solemn oath. Betty smiled, stopped Dr. Banner's neck and kissed him. "Thank you, Bruce." No, it should be. In the night, Betty could not see Banner's awkward smile. Time never stagnates because of someone's preferences. When Li and Lan were on vacation at Betty's happy farm together, time was also slowly moving forward. Dr. Ethan, who was far away in New York, received an investment from the Horizon Fund. The financing of more than $1 billion allowed his Zodiac Group to make great strides. Tony trusted Ethan very much, even unconditionally. Li knew that he should not doubt this honest elder, but he was always worried. So the new member of the Thunder Agents, the Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes, was also sent to the Middle East to follow up on Dr. Ethan's affairs. I hope everything is just an overthinking. On the other hand, Nick Fury also sent a message. Black Bolt expressed his willingness to meet with Li, and the location is decided by him. The time is set on January 5th, why not earlier? Li asked his question. Nick replied, "Please. It's almost Christmas, and Black Bolt is busy all year round, and he just wants to take a break on Christmas. Do you have the nerve to deprive him of his last bit of vacation? He doesn't want you to be idle every day." Huh? Obviously I'm doing serious work every day. Li was complaining about Nick's complaints in his heart. As for the remnant population of the last civilization, would they celebrate Christmas in this civilization? Li estimated that it was probably the custom brought by those who awakened from the earth and became inhumans. This also proved Li's initial guess from another aspect. That is, the inhumans cannot rely on their own population to reproduce alone, otherwise it would be impossible for the civilization culture of this era to occupy the mainstream of the inhuman culture. At least from the perspective of Black Bolt celebrating Christmas, at least this festival has become the mainstream festival among the inhumans. I just don't know if they can celebrate the spring festival? Li exudes his own thoughts in a whimsical way. Speaking of Christmases approaching, Li and Lan bid farewell to Happy Farm, letting Banner and Betty enjoy their own world. Li is going to start preparing Christmas gifts for his relatives and friends again. And this time, under Lan's suggestion, Li also has to prepare gifts about Wang. After all, he has taken care of Lan for so many years. Last year's Christmas was not peaceful, and Li prayed that it would be better this year. It has begun to snow in New York. Li touched the snow spirits falling from the sky and sighed, "I hope I can have a peaceful New Year and Christmas this year." In New York's Times Square, a news message was broadcast. An unknown kind-hearted person has just donated a huge sum of €85 million to poor countries and regions in Asia. It aims to help improve the local basic education level and medical and health conditions. According to sources, the kind-hearted person is very likely to be the winner of the previous Euro Millions lottery that won hundreds of millions of euros. The following is a detailed report. Li looked at the news on Times Square and felt very warm in his heart. There are still many good people in this world. Chapter 779, Christmas Again. Many things have happened this year, both for individuals and for the world. 2 or 3 years ago, Li had never thought that one day he would have the power to change the world. Wearing a black windbreaker and long leather boots, walking on the bustling streets of New York City, the sky was sprinkled with fine snow. Looking at the people walking hurriedly on the street, Li deeply realized for the first time that the world has begun to change. And he can also perceive the role he plays in promoting world change. The sign of the Osborne Group on the side of the road was towering with, "Technology changes the future." Medical points for limb regeneration surgery have begun to expand all over the world. Relying on limb regeneration surgery, the Osborne Group has ushered in a new expansion. It is no longer like when Norman Osborn was alive. The Osborne Group no longer relies on heavy arms industry and complete sets of configuration equipment as its main profit point. Instead, with limb regeneration surgery as the backbone, the group has begun to enter the medical industry and biotechnology on a large scale. Companies that make their main profit from arms are mostly not very good in terms of reputation. Because the production of killing weapons is easy to be criticized, especially when these weapons are really used, or even used to massacre the poor. Therefore, no matter how much money the arms company makes, everyone thinks it is best to keep a low profile, except for a certain playboy, of course. Anyway, The money has been made, so there is no need to ruin your reputation. And this major transformation of the Osborne Group has immediately improved the reputation of the entire company. Young Harry has become the world's most famous businessman with an excellent reputation. As a senior consultant of the Osborne Group, Leegee has been reminding Harry. As a businessman, a good reputation is even better than $1 billion in assets. Although the Osborne Group is still contracting some arms orders from the U.S. military and its allies. But at the same time, the Osborne Group is also promoting its own charity plan, including helping the needy groups to undergo free medical surgery and providing medical assistance to poor countries and regions. This plan, called the Human Health Complementation Plan, has begun to be implemented. Now more than 10,000 people have received practical and nearly life-saving rescue from this plan. This made Harry Osborne, a young man under the age of 20, appear on the cover of Time magazine. Compared with old Norman, the young Harry Osborne has received praise from all over the world. Leegee walked across the street corner and heard a priest who was leading believers to sing hymns on the street and pray for passers-by. He praised loudly, "Here, whether you are my brother or sister," referring to believers of the same faith, "I pray that everyone will treat the world we live in with the most sincere kindness, the purest beauty, and the noblest virtue." The old priest named Edward was passionate, because we are born in an era that cannot be let down. In this era, we enjoy unprecedented abundance of materials in this era. In this era, we landed on planets outside the Earth. In this era, we have done all kinds of things that our predecessors could not imagine. Please let us treat this world with the most sincere feelings, so that our descendants can also enjoy everything we have today. In the past, we often said that God is high in the sky, but today I want to say that God is actually walking on Earth. Father Edward's loud preaching attracted the attention of many people. Leegee stopped to watch for a while. This priest who was full of enthusiasm for life and the world attracted Leegee's favor. When Father Edward's preaching reached a climax, Leegee whistled and applauded vigorously. But Leegee couldn't stay too long, because it was Christmas Eve. He still had a lot of things to do, such as various gifts, including those that needed to be purchased now and those that had been ordered long ago. Go to Fifth Avenue to pick up the gifts that Leegee had ordered in advance. 2 sets of handmade fine lamb coats and cashmere cardigans inside. These were Christmas, New Year, gifts for Lan and his mother. Lan's was a light yellow one, and his mother's was a beige one. As for his father? For this father who often mocked him for no reason, Leegee thought it would be better to give him a prank toy, which was more in line with his personality. However, as for the voucher for a certain boutique men's clothing hidden under the prank toy, Leegee would not tell it. Whether it can be found depends on God's will. When picking up these 2 clothes, Leegee unexpectedly met a girl who spoke English with an Eastern European accent. She said her name was Katyusha. Leegee thought her appearance was very consistent with the name Katyusha, and she looked like an Eastern European classical beauty. She got lost on Fifth Avenue. In fact, she came to attend the annual meeting of the Super High-Speed Railway project. Because this plan was actually initiated by the company of Daniel Randall, the Iron Fist, and promoted by the Horizon Foundation. She wanted to go shopping on Fifth Avenue during the annual meeting, and then bring it back to Ukraine for Christmas gifts for her relatives and friends. In particular, she wanted to find a more suitable men's windbreaker. The style should not be old-fashioned, and the price should not be too expensive. Leegee basically guessed that the girl wanted to give it to her boyfriend, based on the original work that everyone is happy during the holidays. Leegee helped the girl named Katyusha find a good store. Before breaking up, Leegee wished Katyusha, "Merry Christmas to you." Katyusha smiled sweetly, "Merry Christmas to you too, kind Jason." This is just a small episode. Leegee still has to prepare other gifts in the next afternoon, including a batch of dried seafood ordered from Hong Kong for Grandpa, a set of couple shirts and the same cotton socks that Leegee and Lan had figured out with magic to print for Peter Parker and Gwen, a small concentric pendant made for Harry and Mary. There are also various gifts for the Night Watch team, food and clothes that are not suitable for 3 old men. Leegee found 3 classic Harley motorcycles for them, the 1990 Harley Fatboy motorcycles. That is the same model that Arnold Schwarzenegger had in Terminator 2. The car was not difficult to find, but it took some effort to refurbish the old car to look like a new one. However, the 3 old men who received the gifts were very happy and immediately decided to go out for motorcycle racing at night. The toys and snacks that Leegee prepared for Mindy and Laura are no longer rare for them. Because the two little girls have the Lego Unlimited toy pickup coupons given by Tony. They only left the snacks, and then Lee Ji could only give the toys and the limited edition Hoi Toys 1/4 Iron Man model to the hacker. Barbara was also given a set of new biological experiment tools by Lee Ji. This thing is really expensive, but Lee Ji didn't know what to give Barbara. Then there are Tony, Rogers, and a few of the Avengers who have a good relationship with him, and Kick-Ass David, etc. Of course, there is also the King of Comatiki. This one can't be forgotten. Lee Ji felt that he needed to find a secretary to take care of everything for the next holiday. Otherwise, just giving gifts would be a headache. How do I look in this outfit? Lan, wearing a gray slim windbreaker and matching casual trousers, turned around in front of Lee Ji twice. Lee Ji stretched out his hand and gestured an okay look. Perfect, just going to have a meal. You can wear it to the Paris Fashion Week. Lan smiled, took Lee Ji's hand and went out together. The target is Lee Ji's parents' house. Today is Christmas. No matter where you are, people always think about reuniting with their loved ones at this time. Of course, the name of the festival may change, maybe it will be called the Spring Festival, or maybe it will be called Carnival. But no matter what name they are given, their essential meaning remains unchanged. They are all the inseparable ties between people. Even if they are thousands of miles apart, there is always a thread in their hearts. Today, the light snow has stopped and the sun is rising. Stepping on the thin snow, facing the winter sunshine, Lee Ji looked around at the peaceful community, the warm fireplace in his home, and the warm smiles of his family. He said to himself, I hope the morning sun will always shine on the world, and I hope the white snow will not be stained by dust. Chapter 780, Damon's Doom. Christmas is close to the public New Year. Even if some countries do not celebrate Christmas, they still celebrate the New Year. So Christmas is usually a day of celebration. This festive atmosphere is all over the world. Whether it is giving gifts to each other or just a New Year's greeting, people feel a little warm. In addition to the statutory holidays, many people have a happy time during this period. Of course, it's just many people, not everyone. After all, the world is so big and the population is so large, how can everyone be satisfied? For example, a middle-aged white man who was drinking in a well-known bar street in Hong Kong was very unhappy. Or he was very distressed. His name is Damon. He doesn't look handsome, but he is relatively upright and resolute. He looks like a strong man, like a soldier or a bodyguard. He has a short haircut, a strong body and obvious signs of sunburn on his skin. Of course, this first impression is indeed correct. Damon is indeed a person who has done similar work. He has also carried a gun and done some things like armed security. But he does not work for the government or a legal security company, nor does he work in war-torn areas to maintain order or protect important personnel. In fact, he is a member of Hydra. Of course, now we have to add a prefix former Hydra personnel. He has served Hydra for more than 10 years, from an ordinary person at the beginning to receiving various training and education, until he grew into an outstanding armed personnel. Among the peripheral armed personnel of Hydra, Damon has reached the top. He has almost entered the middle-level circle. His highest position was to lead an armed group, managing 20 to 30 elite soldiers, which is equivalent to a platoon leader of a reinforced platoon in the army. At that time, his salary could also get more than $9,000 a month. For this salary, Damon can't say he is dissatisfied, but he can't say he is satisfied. Because he has served Hydra for a long time, he can't see any future. Because of some things, Damon has become less and less valued in Hydra, and there is even a vague exclusion. Especially after Damon's position was removed, Damon felt more and more difficult. Because when you are a team leader, there is also a soldier allowance. If you are just an ordinary soldier, then the basic salary plus the year allowance and field allowance are added together. He felt that it was not worth the job of more than $9,000 before tax, and it was in a corner of South America. At that time, Magneto attacked the mining area where Damon was stationed, and then other heroes went to deal with Magneto. This attack caused the gold mine of Hydra in Chile, South America to be completely destroyed, and all the members of Hydra were killed. But Damon was lucky, he survived under such circumstances. So he decided to take advantage of this incident to fake his death and get out of Hydra completely. Over the years, Damon has also met a group of people in the underworld. By entrusting these people, Damon got a brand new identity. He has already contacted some friends in China, and helped him find a foreign teacher position in a high-end private school in Shanghai. Through the remote video interview, Damon's fluent Mandarin that makes many Chinese people ashamed. Damon is a broadcasting major with a first-class level, as well as is extremely proficient English in his native environment. These two conditions instantly impressed the Chinese principal on the other side of the ocean. The other party immediately offered him an annual salary of 300,000 RMB, and full salary during the winter and summer vacations. And he solved his accommodation problem in China. The school has a teacher's apartment. It seems that the income of 300,000 RMB a year is not as good as his annual income of more than 100,000 US dollars, but from the perspective of risk and return, it is very cost-effective. After all, being an armed member of Hydra is a huge risk. Maybe one day a superhero will come down from the sky and kill you without saying a word. The business of risking your life is naturally not as good as being a teacher in school with peace of mind. And there are winter and summer vacations, so you can also work part-time in a training school outside. An income of 500,000 RMB a year is also a challenge. In China, this income is quite considerable. Damon decided to devote the rest of his life to improving the foreign language level of the lovely Chinese people. Of course, Damon, who had whitewashed his identity and stayed in Europe for a while, bought a Euro Millions lottery ticket. This was just a casual thing. But Damon didn't realize at the time that his unintentional act completely changed his life. Just when Damon was about to leave for China to start his career as a foreign teacher, the Euro Millions lottery was announced. A huge prize of more than 100 million euros was won by one bet. Just when Damon began to envy this lucky guy, he suddenly found out that he was the lucky guy. In other words, even after paying all the high taxes, he still had 90 million euros. What kind of foreign teacher can I do with this money? What kind of Hydra armed personnel can I do with this money? Now I have to make equals waste or use eat, northeastern dialect. With 90 million euros in hand, who can I be afraid of? In this world, you can do whatever you want with money. So Damon decided to start enjoying life. First, he bought a big villa on the Spanish seaside, then a 100-foot luxury yacht, and then a McLaren P1 sports car. He opened 2 bottles of champagne Dom, which cost tens of thousands of euros a bottle, to taste the taste. Damon experienced the life he had never dared to imagine in the first half of his life. He felt that he was an extremely lucky person, and this was God's favor to him. But happiness is always followed by sorrow. Just when Damon was enjoying himself, all kinds of misfortunes began to befall him. He took a yacht out to sea with a beautiful woman, but they ran into a reef in the deep sea area, more than 50 nautical miles from the coastline. The yacht was scrapped, and he and the beautiful woman paddled in a kayak for a long time before returning to the shore. After this incident, Damon was in a terrible mood. Well, at worst, he would not play with a boat. He decided to drive his McLaren P1 out to relax. As a result, he was rear-ended by a large truck less than 30 kilometers away, and Damon almost died. The metal pieces flying from the car were only 1 centimeter away from his chest, which was right in front of his heart. From then on, Damon felt that he was unlucky. The house caught fire and he fell down while walking, which was normal. But one day, Damon sneezed, and his jaw was dislocated. Damon felt that something must be wrong with him. Chapter 781, What You Said Cannot Be Taken Back. Damon felt that something must have gone wrong. Actually, he had always been very lucky in his life. At least luckier than most people. For example, recently, he had escaped from more than a dozen attacks on Hydra branches by the Brotherhood of Mutants. It would be fine if it happened once or twice, but more than a dozen times in a row. With such luck, how could he say that he had no luck bonus? Damon himself didn't believe it. Just like winning the Euro Millions lottery this time, he felt that he was just lucky. But was it really just luck? Damon fell into deep thought. If it was just good luck, why did he suddenly become so unlucky? Did he run out of luck? Damon was puzzled. Since these bad lucks happened, Damon has become a frightened bird, and he is very cautious in doing everything. Try not to make any mistakes. And he began to recall various details about his good luck. Why did he have good luck in the past? What were the small details that made his luck so good? Damon felt that he needed to figure it all out, and after in-depth research and recollection, Damon felt that the truth was getting closer and closer to him. The first time Magneto led the Brotherhood of Mutants to attack Hydra's Asian branch, he heard the alarm at the time, and it was the highest level of alert, So Damon whispered, "I hope nothing happens to me." Because there were many other companions around, Damon used his mutant power to say this sentence in Chinese. As a result, when defending Magneto's attack on the Singapore branch for the first time, Damon fell out and fainted. The other team members happened to not find him. As a result, when Damon woke up, the entire Singapore branch had been destroyed. The second time was because he ate a bad hamburger. Damon himself heard someone discussing the last attack on the Singapore branch after eating the hamburger that day. Damon also muttered in a low voice at the time, about a brotherhood of mutants attacking or something. It is best not to let himself run into it. If he runs into it, he'd better be able to escape. This was also muttered in a low voice in Chinese. As a result, something happened again that day. Magneto brought a group of mutants to raid the house again. As a result, because of the bad burger, Damon had diarrhea in a bathroom in a remote location in the basement until he collapsed. When he walked out of the bathroom with trembling legs, he found that the branch had been wiped out again. As for the 9 similar things that happened in succession, there is no need to go into details one by one. Damon recalled these details, and with his years of training and experience, he quickly found one of the details, a common point. That is, when these things happened, or before they happened. Damon himself muttered a few words in Chinese. Since the awakening of the mutant power, the only mutant power Damon has obtained is to speak Chinese. Damon has always thought that he has only awakened the ability of a foreign language. But now he finds that maybe he underestimated this foreign language. Maybe it is not as simple as a simple foreign language. So under this conjecture, Damon tried to use his mutant power, speaking Chinese, to say something with specific meaning. For example, he asked the Queen of England, who had been on the throne for 65 years, to abdicate, and Prince Charles, who is already 68 years old, to ascend the throne. Well, this thing did not happen successfully, maybe because it was too difficult? Or maybe his ability was not enough, or maybe the Queen of England actually had a strange protective magic? But Damon tried some other small things and succeeded. For example, he successfully made the bulldog raised by his neighbor never pee in his yard again. It was attracted by a female dog, and ended up chasing the female dog, and never appeared again, or he asked someone to trim the bushes outside his mansion for free. A certain gardening company made a mistake in the house number and mistakenly took Damon's house as the home of a scheduled customer, and ended up helping Damon trim the bushes for free. After so many years, Damon finally discovered a shocking secret. He had always thought that the mutant ability that was only used to speak foreign languages could actually change the world to some extent. Even make impossible things happen. He originally just wanted to use this foreign language ability to be a foreign teacher, but now he found that the application of this ability far exceeded his imagination. After that, Damon fell into a crazy experiment, and he began to slowly summarize a rule. The smaller and simpler things are, the easier it is to modify them, such as asking someone to help you trim the bushes at the door. The more related to yourself, especially to your life, the easier it is to modify them, such as the things that saved your life several times before. The more difficult things are, the lower the probability of modification, or even impossible. But I won the Euro Millions lottery, with a prize of more than 100 million euros. This is a big deal in the world. Why did it happen? Damon finally came to a conclusion that he had to pay a price for using his mutant ability. You need to pay a suitable price for modifying something. Otherwise, there will be such a backlash. Just like the several times he saved his life before, the first time was because he fell down, which gave him a headache for a whole month. After that, he had a stomach ache and was exhausted. There are many such things. So what price did I pay to win the Euro Millions lottery? Damon recalled bitterly, and he finally remembered the oath he made that day. If he wins the Euro Millions jackpot, he is willing to donate 90% to charity and education in South America and Asia. Damon finally remembered the oath he made that day. After remembering his oath, he slapped himself hard. I let you be so rude. This is the price for winning the prize. He wants to use most of the prize money for charity and contribute to improving human welfare. But his original oath said 90% of the entire prize money. But now he has bought a mansion, a yacht, a sports car, and good wine. A lot of these have been spent. Damon scolded himself for being rude. Wouldn't it be good to go to China to be a foreign teacher? But now, not only does he have to give back all the money he won, including the principal and interest, but he also has to bear debts. After selling all his property and even overdrawing his credit card, Damon finally raised 85 million euros for charity. He gritted his teeth and stomped his feet and donated it all. Out of sight, out of mind. Since donating to charity, Damon found that the omnipresent bad luck finally stopped bothering him. But at the same time, he also found that he, who should have been a billionaire, was now a pauper. Because he spent a lot of money before, he even had a bank debt of nearly $200,000. He felt that he was about to collapse. Now Damon has neither a job nor savings, and is burdened with a huge debt. He feels that he has no place to stand. Finally, through the introduction of a friend, he fled to Hong Kong. He planned to find a way to enter the mainland of China from Hong Kong, because in the world, China's mutant living environment is the most relaxed. Although it needs to be governed, it is at least better than some countries in Europe and the United States. Damon even heard that there is a branch of the Brotherhood of Mutants in Hong Kong. If he can contact them, he may be able to meet Magneto. After all, Magneto has met him once, and he did not kill him last time. If he knew his mutant ability, he might appreciate him. $200,000 is a huge sum of money for me now, but it is just a drop in the bucket for Magneto. Damon has been in Hong Kong for a while, and he has come into contact with some underground mutants in Hong Kong, doing shady business. According to their rumors, this bar is the meeting place of the Asian branch of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Damon decided to try his luck tonight to see if he could meet with the people of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Just after he ordered another martini, he was about to try to tell the bartender, the legendary contact person, the secret code he had inquired about. The door of this bar called Blue Night was pushed open heavily. The two strong men who were originally responsible for maintaining order and security at the door of the bar were also beaten and flew in. The two strong men crashed into two tables near the door, and the cups on the ground were broken. Everyone's eyes turned to the door, and Damon clearly saw a man and a woman appear at the door of this bar. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 782. Something happened in Hong Kong, New York. Li Ji spent this year's Christmas and New Year quite comfortably. After confirming his relationship with Lan, he brought her home to have dinner with his family on Christmas. This was a very formal introduction. Li Ji's family was very happy, especially Li Ji's father, Lian. After receiving the prank toy, his expression was very wonderful because he was the first person to be tricked by this prank toy. When he saw Li Ji bringing Lan back to dinner, he deliberately hugged Li Ji and said loudly, "Congratulations, you are finally willing to bring a serious girlfriend back. If you were hanging out with Harry and Peter every day, I would have thought you were going to support the Rainbow Act." "Hey." Li Ji shushed his father loudly. "I've only heard of people cheating their fathers, but never heard of people cheating their sons." The family dinner was a great success, and Li Ji was going to go to Kamatiki afterwards. Facing Lan, who did not come back for the new year, Wang's face was as red as a pot. Li Ji bought a lot of gifts, not just food, clothing, and drinks. Through Lan's introduction, Li Ji also knew that Wang liked to drink tea, so he went to JDZ to find a tea set made by a provincial arts and crafts master and gave it to Wang. Of course, Li Ji did not forget to bring a set for Master Gu Yi. Gu Yi also liked this kind of exquisite tea set, although he never deliberately collected such things. Compared with Master Gu Yi, who was smiling, Wang still had a stern face after receiving the gift. This made Li Ji very embarrassed, and he didn't know whether to leave or stay. Finally, Master Gu Yi came forward. He patted Wang, the personal servant who had always been following him, and said with a smile, "Old Wang, you can't be too calculative. You are so old, why bother?" Old Wang's face was as black as charcoal. Since Master Gu Yi had spoken, he could only nod silently. With Master Gu Yi's excuse, Li Ji and Lan hurriedly bid farewell to Kamarteji, where the atmosphere was not very good, mainly because Old Wang's atmosphere was not right. There are still many things to do in the new year. This new year, the whole world suddenly became peaceful. There were no villains who wanted to destroy the world, nor were there any accidents. Li Ji was surprised to find that he had inexplicably killed a large number of villains on Earth in the past 2 years. There is no need to mention the New York gangs or the American gangs. For example, the earliest Stanich family, there is no need to mention them, They have been completely wiped out in the long river of history. The vampires, which were originally unstable factors in the European and American underground, were eradicated by the Night Watch organization headed by Lee G. The largest underground gang in the United States, which controlled Kingpin, also died. Because of the emergence of new energy, the war in the Middle East also stopped inexplicably. After Lee G and others mediated the war in Eastern Europe, they persuaded Dr. Doom, who is hailed as a dictator and tyrant. Although Doom is still in charge of Latveria, his mind has been put on magic learning. He has begun to slowly let go of secular power. In addition, the Eurasian Super Railway project has tied the new Eastern European Union to Russia and China. There is still the possibility of regional friction in the future, but it has become reconcilable. In addition to the completely collapsed Mandarin and the Ten Rings, the Hand and the Yashuda group, which were entrenched in the East Asia and were originally the largest underground evil forces in East Asia, were also completely eliminated under the intervention of Lee Ji and others. Now, the two most unstable underground groups in the world, one of which is the head of the Brotherhood of Mutants, Mr. Magneto, has been invited by Lee Ji to play with Lego bricks on Venus. And the other Hydra has been almost half disabled by Lee Ji. He even launched an economic siege campaign against them, preparing to kill Hydra fundamentally. In addition to the plan of the Illuminati, the Earth Federation began to take shape. The whole world pattern has begun to undergo a profound change. Although it is only the beginning, it can already be felt. With the emergence of the New York Vigilante Organization, the passerby heroes led by the Justice League have shown that they can do more for this society. In addition, New York City has Gwen's father George Stacy as a backing. He is now the mayor of New York City, and he has a deep connection with individual heroes and organizations, including Spider-Man and the Night Watch. George Stacy's cooperation has made the entire hero organization start to develop in a good direction. Keep a good balance and don't cross the limit. The street heroes in New York City set an example for the whole world. In New York, a city with the highest global exposure, the actions of these street heroes have inspired more people in other places to stand up. This heroic flame started from a weak point, but it spread all over the world. Even Spider-Man Peter Parker began to complain, there are fewer and fewer criminals on the road now. Spider-Man can almost retire. Well, this is the current situation. In addition to half-dead Hydra, a half-solved Brotherhood of Mutants, and an inhuman problem. Lee Ji looked around the world, and all the other villains were dead, or quit. What on earth have I experienced in the past 2 years? Am I so powerful? Exclamation mark. In Harry's Osborn Manor, the three good friends rarely have time to get together to play games. Now there is no need to study. Although only 2 years have passed, the three have grown a lot and each has a business. They can no longer hang out with their three friends and play around all day and night like they used to. Those carefree days are gone forever. So the three of them especially cherish the days when they can get together during festivals. World peace. Peter Parker controlled Curry, NBA player, to shoot a buzzer-beating three-pointer and turn the game around at the last moment. Harry controlled Harden, NBA player, but failed to defend and ended up losing the game at the last moment. They are playing NBA 2K18, a game that has just been released. In fact, the three of them, including Lee Ji, are fans of the NBA and they often watch games together. They also often discuss who among David Stern, former NBA president, Crawford, famous NBA referee, and Jerry Buss, former NBA Lakers owner, is Kobe Bryant's, former famous NBA player, biological father. Every time such a topic comes up, the three of them will argue until their faces turn red. After Harry lost a game, he handed the controller to Lee Ji. Do you want to play? Lee Ji yawned. Forget it. I feel a bit bored. In fact, how many days have we been playing games? Compared to Lee Ji, who seemed a little uninterested, Peter was still very energetic. He said, it was you who suggested that we find something to do to pass the time, and it's New Year's Day. So we have been staying in Osborn's mansion for 3 days. 3 days. Lee Ji touched his temple in distress. I don't know if it's because people are just mean. I suddenly missed the time when villains were causing trouble all day long. Now the world has inexplicably become very peaceful. What should I do? Harry and Peter looked at Lee Ji with an expression of "you're just mean." Harry patted Lee Ji on the shoulder. Please don't mention me and Peter when you talk about people being mean. We don't have the same mean spirit as you. The villains who don't cause trouble are good villains. When all the villains in this world are dead, we can retire gloriously. Enjoy life, brother. Ali G groaned in pain and rolled on the ground twice. I'm bored to death, who can find something to do? Peter and Harry looked like this guy is hopeless. Just when Li Ji was bored and wanted to disassemble the game console and reassemble it, his phone rang. The call was from Professor Charles. Li Ji just pressed the answer button and the anxious voice of Professor Charles came from the phone. Something happened in Hong Kong, China. Chapter 783, Is there anything that can't be said in one breath? The Blue Devil pointed his finger at Damon tremblingly, and whispered tremblingly, he. Before he finished speaking, Li Ji, Magneto and Charles all cast their eyes over. The chill like a blade scraping his body instantly made Damon shiver. Isn't this fatal? Damon felt that he was about to cry. Brother Blue Devil, isn't what you said fatal? Exclamation mark. You can't say half and leave half, you are going to kill me. Magneto asked who you are to tear down his house, why are you pointing at me? Damon really wanted to cry for you. Especially when facing Magneto's unfriendly eyes, Damon immediately stepped back several steps and shook his hands vigorously. Wait, it's not me, I didn't, it really wasn't me. But will Magneto Marx listen to his excuses? Believe in an outsider or believe in the child you raised since childhood? This is an easy choice. So Magneto just waved his hand, and Damon was trapped in the spot. Just when Magneto was full of resentment and was about to take Damon for surgery, Blue Devil finally finished the rest of his words tremblingly. He knows, he saw it. Ask him. After saying this, Blue Devil seemed to have spent all his energy, lying on the sofa gasping for breath, and didn't want to speak again. Damon's inner OS, next time, can you please finish all your words at once? Big brother. I beg you. Hearing what Blue Devil said, Magneto's face jumped. He put down Damon who he had just caught, and threw him to the ground. Damon saved his life. Li Ji, who had been thinking about who Damon was, suddenly remembered. Aren't you that so-and-so? That so-and-so. Li Ji clapped his hands and said loudly, I seem to have seen you at Hydra, at the Chilean gold mine. Aren't you a Hydra man? Nightcrawler suddenly interrupted, and Damon, who had just put his mind at ease, became nervous again. Because of Li Ji's reminder, Magneto and Charles were both stunned, and then both of them recalled and thought about it. Damon, who was originally let go as a nobody that day, remembered the memory again. They all recalled that they had indeed seen such a person that day. But no one cared at the time, and it didn't leave a deep impression. If it weren't for Li Ji's good memory, maybe everyone would have forgotten it. Magneto, who had just wanted to ask Damon what happened there, suddenly got angry again. He controlled the electromagnetic field to grab Damon directly, and growled fiercely, so you are from Hydra? It seems that I really let the tiger out that day. Damon struggled desperately. That's over, it's really over. I'm not a Hydra anymore, this incident has nothing to do with me. I just went to have a drink, and I still want to join the Brotherhood of Mutants. I'm serious, I quit Hydra after the Chile incident. I said at the time that maybe I would come to China to be a foreign teacher. I also said that I would buy a Euro Millions lottery ticket to try my luck. If I win, I will donate the money to charity in Asia and South America. Damon spoke quickly, for fear that he would be killed by Magneto if he spoke slowly. Haven't you watched the news recently? I just donated 85 million euros. Which Hydra villain would do such a thing? I really want to be a good person after turning over a new leaf. Give me a chance, I want to be a good person. Damon shouted at the top of his lungs. Li Ji suspected that Damon might have watched the movie Infernal Affairs during his time in Hong Kong. Magneto did not respond to Damon, but turned his eyes to Professor Charles. Professor Charles nodded in response to Marx's gaze. What he said is true. Marx did not let Damon go until Charles nodded. Magneto said to Damon coldly, tell me everything you know. Facing the three big guys' gazes, Damon trembled. Time went back a few hours. Damon was sitting in a bar in Lan Kwai Fong drinking. It is rumored that this bar is the underground meeting point of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Damon, who wanted to join the Brotherhood of Mutants to solve his debt problem, originally wanted to knock on the door. But what should have been a peaceful night was something discordant. A man and a woman suddenly broke into the bar and began to wreak havoc on the bar. The woman was very beautiful with a pair of deep gray-green eyes and long crimson hair. The other man had light blonde hair and sharp features. Judging from their appearance, they were the handsome men and beautiful women that appeared every day in Lan Kwai Fong. Even foreigners were not special. But this pair of handsome men and beautiful women did something that was completely inconsistent with their appearance. The man disappeared in an instant like a flash of lightning, and the moment he disappeared, there was a large-scale commotion in the entire bar and even the bar street outside. People were thrown out inexplicably, or had their ribs broken, or were simply beaten to death. The female one was smiling, with her hands flashing red, and no one knew what she was doing. But Damon soon understood what she was doing. Because the commotion in front was very clear, that is, someone came to cause trouble for the branch of the Brotherhood of Mutants. The remaining security personnel who received the warning all rushed out and prepared to subdue the man and woman. But are the siblings named Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver so easy to subdue? Quicksilver's speed is simply not something that people can keep up with. At least these mutants can't, so some mutant security guards were knocked down by Quicksilver before they used their mutant abilities. Some security guards turned their firepower to Scarlet Witch. Whether it was the Kilgan waves or heat rays brought by the mutant ability, or the bullets of conventional thermal weapons, they could not hit Scarlet Witch. Some abilities and weapons even hurt themselves. This made many security guards lose their composure. They had never encountered such a terrible ability. At this time, everyone who could run on the bar street started running, and Damon also wanted to run. It was obvious that this man and woman had bad intentions. They came for the Brotherhood of Mutants. If they were involved with the Brotherhood of Mutants at this time, their lives would be in danger. So when escaping, Damon activated his mutant ability. He said in Chinese, "Let me survive this level." Damon no longer thought about how much it would cost to use this ability. Anyway, the experience of escaping from Magneto before has reminded him that if it doesn't work, he will just have diarrhea for another day. Although his stomach and intestines will suffer, it is better than losing his life. Just when Damon was escaping, Blue Devil, who was in charge of the Asian branch, was rushing over from other places in Hong Kong. His mutant ability is Flash. He can make himself or the object he is holding disappear in one place in an instant, and then appear in another place. This is very similar to the teleport skill in some games. Quicksilver's speed is too fast, but it does not mean that he is invincible. Super fast speed is given to him by mutant ability. As long as he is not caught, he can use his own energy and super fast speed to do all kinds of destruction. His energy has opened up a channel for him. In this channel, he can drive at lightning speed, overturn cars and destroy high-rise buildings. But this does not mean that his physical strength is the same as Helium Dragon in the comics. In fact, a sharp paper cutter can end Quicksilver's life. Blue Devil knows very well that mutants are not invincible. Most people awaken a single mutant ability. He has never seen multiple mutant abilities. Quicksilver is so fast, so he probably doesn't have any other abilities. Blue Devil wanted to use his Flash ability to see if he could catch Quicksilver and give him a knife. But Scarlet Witch had already noticed Blue Devil when he just appeared here. Scarlet Witch's ability was activated, and the probability was modified. So the tragic Blue Devil was not able to successfully use the Flash ability to catch Quicksilver, but was caught by Quicksilver. Then it was Quicksilver who stabbed him, but fortunately Blue Devil escaped in time at the last moment. With a flash, he appeared in front of Damon. Damon was frightened by the sudden appearance of Blue Devil, and as a result, the seriously injured Blue Devil could not stand steadily and put one hand on Damon. Blue Devil knew that he was no match for Scarlet and Quicksilver, and the Asian branch was probably not going to be saved. So he activated the Flash to escape, and Damon, who was on his shoulder with one hand, was also flashed by him. So, Damon appeared here inexplicably, and faced Li Ji, Magneto, and Charles inexplicably. He wanted to cry but had no tears. If this was the price of using his ability this time, he really shouldn't have used it so much. Damn Chinese, he must forget it in the future. Chapter 784. This is an open conspiracy. After Damon explained clearly what he had experienced and the causes and consequences of the whole incident, Magneto and Charles fell silent. It was obvious that someone was provoking the Brotherhood of Mutants. And those who attacked the Brotherhood of Mutants also looked like mutants. Their goal was to mess with the Brotherhood of Mutants. Magneto had offended many people over the years, and it was not impossible for an enemy to come to seek revenge. Not all mutants were of the same mind as Magneto. Especially in the early years when Magneto was gathering power, he had done a lot of bad things. So the two of them couldn't figure out where these two people came from for a while. But if we talk about the people Magneto has offended recently, then there is only one, and that is the one he offended the most severely before, Hydra. So now Magneto has two suspects. One is an unknown enemy he had offended before. The second is Hydra. Of course, in terms of the possibility of revenge, Hydra is the biggest. Because Magneto has led people to eliminate many branches of Hydra in succession. So Magneto Max stared at Damon and asked, was it done by Hydra? Huh? How should Damon answer this question? This is a fatal question. If he says it was done by Hydra, how does he know it was done by Hydra? Then there is only one answer, Damon is an accomplice of Hydra. Death? If he says it was not done by Hydra, how does he know it was not done by Hydra? The answer is still one, he is still an accomplice, and he also wants to cover up Hydra. Tragic death? Choose one of the two, both are death. This kind of fatal question is the most difficult to answer. So Damon could only barely control his facial muscles, so that the corners of his mouth were not so bitter, and whispered, this. I don't know, I have been away from Hydra for a long time. Damon narrowly avoided this fatal question. At this time, Professor Charles also patted Magneto's arm, signaling him not to force Damon. Because this guy really doesn't know. But the professor still had a question in his mind. Marx, just assume that it was Hydra who did it. They are indeed the most suspicious, but I can't understand why they did this. Magneto looked away, and Damon breathed a sigh of relief. Magneto glanced at the scenery of Hong Kong outside the window. Obviously, they are retaliating for everything I did before. For some reason, I destroyed a large number of Hydra branches. Aren't you very clear about these things? The upright Professor Charles smiled awkwardly. He secretly turned his head to glance at Li Ji, but Nightwalker Li Ji did not focus on them now. Instead, he crossed his arms across his chest as if he was thinking about something. Charles could only smile bitterly and try to change the subject. Max, I'm just curious about what benefits Hydra will gain by doing this? In fact, Hong Kong is a complicated place. And the branch of the Brotherhood of Mutants here is semi-public. You don't have to shake your head, I know some things. You have certain connections with the outer periphery of the SHIE, and the local government has turned a blind eye to you. So this branch can only be regarded as a resting place, right? It's not actually very important. Max nodded expressionlessly after listening to Professor Charles' words. Okay, now that you know. This is actually the case. I have an agreement with certain people in authority that no notorious murderers or notorious mutants can appear in the Hong Kong garrison. The members of the Brotherhood of Mutants who come and go only stop here to rest, purchase supplies and reorganize. In fact, I also helped the local government smuggle some mutants who are not living well in other countries. Their mutant abilities are of no use to my organization, but they are of certain use at the national level. Max stamped his feet. Charles, you know. The country under our feet has a different attitude towards mutants. They are willing to introduce some special talents. But the scale has never been large. Neither I nor the authorities want this to be known to the world. This is a tacit understanding. Magneto spoke lightly about some secret transactions between himself and the authorities of this land. It was difficult for Charles to judge whether this was good or bad. Provide the authorities with special talents needed by this country, and then exchange for a kind of political asylum that cannot be made public? Well, Charles didn't know how to describe this relationship. But he understood that the Hong Kong branch was not that important. So he spoke, and this is the key, Max. The Hong Kong branch is actually not worth dealing with in a big way. Except for the Blue Devil, there is not even a real core member of the Brotherhood of Mutants here. Attacking here not only exposes one's intentions, but is also a declaration of war and provocation. Especially since they destroyed the entire Lan Kuei Fung, I think there are at least hundreds of casualties. This will undoubtedly anger the Chinese government even more. The Shenmiao Bureau may unprecedentedly strengthen its efforts to deal with Hydra. Charles brushed off the wrinkles on his suit. In many ways, this is a well-priced attack. Is Hydra so stupid? The effort and benefits are completely disproportionate. What Professor Charles said still makes sense. Although Magneto has always thought that Hydra is stupid. But he doesn't really think that the Hydra group is all mentally retarded. If they were all mentally retarded, Hydra would not be able to be so big. Just as the two old friends were thinking about the purpose behind Hydra's actions, Li Ji, who had been pretending to be a thinker, spoke up. What if Hydra wants to provoke internal strife? Charles and Magneto both looked at Li Ji. What? Li Ji stood up from the sofa. I mean, what if Hydra wants to provoke internal strife? an internal strife within the Brotherhood of Mutants, or even make it fall apart. Magneto was a little unhappy with Li Ji's words. It's not that we can provoke us by just finding two mutants to attack the mutant branch. Mutants are not that stupid. In fact, Magneto has always disliked Li Ji since they first met. He thinks he is a man who only knows how to talk, and he still thinks so until now. Although he was caught by Li Ji, and the various conflicts he provoked before were also solved by Li Ji. Of course, no one in the Illuminati told Magneto about this matter, and Li Ji also modestly stated that those excellent ideas all came from Professor X anyway. Why would he attract Magneto's hatred for no reason? Li Ji was not in the mood to do that. Li Ji knew very well what this fake medicine king and Lego building block assembling king thought of him, so he ignored Magneto. Li Ji said to himself, "Just now, Magneto, you also mentioned that you attacked the Hydra branch for some reason. I think we all know the reason, that is, your children were captured by Hydra. Now I will make an assumption, if the man and woman who attacked this branch were your children, what would you do?" Li Ji proposed such a concept in a wild and unconstrained way, but Magneto, who originally had a little disdain for Li Ji, immediately became solemn. And Charles also guessed the possibility of such a thing. The two old friends looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. If this is really the case, then Hydra's doing this is very meaningful, and it is even an unavoidable conspiracy. Chapter 785 I actually don't drink. In fact, when Damon was narrating the whole incident, Li Ji had already started thinking. Because he felt a little familiar with the two people in Damon's story. A man who ran very fast, and a woman who seemed to be able to modify probability. This ability is just speculation. In fact, Damon did not know the ability of Scarlet Witch, because modifying probability is an ability that cannot be expressed intuitively. So what Damon said was only vague. If one of the two people appeared alone, such as Scarlet Witch, Li Ji might not be able to think of anything quickly. Because in the movie of his previous life, he was just watching the excitement. In fact, after watching the movie, he still didn't know what Scarlet Witch's ability was. It seems very cool, but it doesn't seem to be very cool. It's always in a vague state. Anyway, the movie didn't show it very well. As a non-hardcore movie passerby, Li Ji really doesn't remember Scarlet Witch's performance. He just has a vague impression, including long scarlet hair and so on. As Scarlet Witch's younger brother and the fastest man in the Marvel movie world, Quicksilver's ability is very conspicuous and extremely easy to recognize. Because few people can run as fast as him. In addition, Li Ji saw in the movies in his previous life that although Quicksilver only played a supporting role in the movies produced by Marvel Studios, he had a lot of roles in the X-Men series of movies produced by Fox. After all, he is Magneto's son. In short, if these two people appear alone, Li Ji is not sure who they are and whether they are related to Magneto. But when the two appear together and are related to Hydra, Li Ji is basically 70% to 80% sure that they are this pair of siblings. However, there is another question here. That is, from the timeline, Magneto's lost children have been gone for 40 to 50 years. After all, it happened in the 1960s. Logically speaking, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver should be older than the Blue Devil, who is lying half dead on the sofa. The Blue Devil is already a middle-aged man in his 40s. Even if Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are mutants, and some powerful mutants age slowly, as long as their abilities are not like Logan's, cell activity, then time will still leave traces on them. There is no reason to say that they are still the same as young men and women in their 20s after so many years. Damon just said very clearly that it was a young man and woman who came. This reduced Li Ji's confidence by 10%. So Li Ji can only express his thoughts in this speculative way, rather than in a positive way. After a brief surprise, Professor Charles also discovered the problem. He crossed his fingers and said, "I don't deny that what Nightcrawler said just now is indeed possible. Because although his inference is a bit fanciful, it can explain Hydra's motives to some extent. The only problem is their age. They don't match in age. These two are too young." This question raised by Charles is also what Li Ji is considering. But compared to the two people who had such and such thoughts, Magneto Charles seemed more certain. Although he did not believe Li Ji's words at the beginning, he now had his own ideas. "It's not difficult, Charles." Magneto waved his hand to interrupt Professor Charles' words. "In fact, we know that there are many things in this world that can delay aging, such as the thing we saw in S.H.I.E.L.D. before, Infinite Serum. This serum can delay aging, but it has side effects. Once the injection starts, it cannot be stopped. As long as it stops, aging will accelerate. Since S.H.I.E.L.D. can make this kind of thing, then Hydra may not have obtained the formula after ambushing in S.H.I.E.L.D. for so many years. Magneto Marx's face jumped. So this is not a problem. If all these assumptions are true, everything Hydra does has enough reasons. Magneto's words made Professor Charles nodded silently. Now Li Ji and the other two have speculated on Hydra's practices and purposes in some ways. Although it is not 100% certain, it is at least 70% certain. So I guess, if Hydra continues to do this, then they will not only let your children continue to attack the Brotherhood of Mutants branch, but also let them make bigger news. Until there is global public outrage, they will finally reveal the information to you in various ways. Li Ji pointed at Magneto. Let me tell you, this pair of siblings who slaughtered countless members of the Brotherhood of Mutants and even turned the world upside down are your children. So what will you do, Magneto? Magneto's face twitched. This is indeed an unsolvable conspiracy. He has been searching for the whereabouts of his children all his life. Since his parents died in the concentration camp, Magneto has been alone. It was not until he had a wife and children that his wandering and restless heart calmed down. But later his wife died and the child was robbed, which caused Magneto, who had turned over a new leaf, to turn evil again. Do you say that children are not important to him? Mark still remembers the warmth of the two babies in his arms decades ago, as well as their lovely smiles. Even if they cried loudly, they would not annoy him. He has lost a lot, from the war years to the peace years. Magneto no longer wants to lose anything important in his life. So Magneto gritted his teeth and growled in a low voice from his throat, Hydra. Charles and Li Ji looked at each other. It seemed that Magneto Max was really angry to a certain extent. And the problem now is to think about how to catch this pair of siblings before they cause a bigger mess. As long as they are caught, all the remaining plans of Hydra will be useless. The attack in Lanquai Fong is already a very bad start. I don't know what kind of interest exchange Magneto needs to make with the government to ensure that the other party will no longer pursue it. After all, he can't give up the line that the mutant brothers will be in China. This line is his most secure one. Charles sighed. This is really not a good time. In fact, Tuvalu is trying to contact the Chinese government. Logan, Jean, Scott, Storm and others are all preparing for this. They will make it public after contacting enough allies. Although I don't want to say this, Max, your temporary departure has allowed the Brotherhood of Mutants to calm down temporarily and create a period of peace. This is originally a good opportunity. But if they, referring to Magneto's children, cause too many and too big things, I'm afraid our future plans will be difficult. Tuvalu is our hope. Young mutants have more ideas than us old people who are about to die. Magneto did not say a word after hearing what Professor Charles said, and it was unknown whether he agreed or disagreed with this idea. Li Ji shrugged his shoulders. My relationship with Doom is much better now. If China doesn't work, we can find a breakthrough from Eastern Europe. Times have changed. I think many countries have realized that for extraterrestrial civilizations that may appear at any time, those civilizations will not care whether you are an ordinary person on Earth or a mutant on Earth. All racial beliefs are meaningless when the gun is pointed at. If someone is really blind, I still have a trump card in my hand. I think you know, Professor. Li Ji's so-called trump card is the Dark Elves that have never been used until now. There are more than 1,000 Dark Elf prisoners of war in the prison of the Asgard, and Loki has not touched them yet. Whether this card needs to be used depends entirely on the situation on Li Ji's side. It is not necessary to use it, but Li Ji does not mind playing it when needed. Especially now that he has a stronger grasp of the situation of the entire world, Li Ji believes that the invasion of the Dark Elves can be directed into drama with great momentum but limited damage. While the three were talking about these things, Damon, who was watching the big guys chatting and laughing, interrupted weakly. What? Can I leave now? The three big guys looked at him, and Damon continued to tremble. Nightwalker shook his head very clearly. Want to leave? Sure, but before that you may need to do us a favor. Your ability still looks very useful. Equivalent exchange, you do us a favor, and we can also do you a favor. What do you think? Facing the kind eyes of the three big guys, mainly Magneto, Damon was touched. He tried not to let himself shed excited tears, and finally nodded vigorously. Dinner time. This high-end hotel in Central provides very authentic Hong Kong-style dim sum. Compared to eating big dishes, Hong Kong-style dim sum is more pleasing. The Blue Devil has a very strong recovery ability, because of Magneto's non-destructive surgery, plus an afternoon of rest. The Blue Devil can barely walk at night and can simply eat something at the dinner table. At this time, Magneto was discussing Damon's ability. Actually, his ability is rare, very rare. It is a kind of power of the word spirit. I know that some people have the ability to change the direction of an event, but this ability is generally very weak, that is, the ability to modify probability. And this kind of word spirit ability can make something that has not happened happen, but the power of the word spirit is uncontrollable. The more preset conditions, the more accurate the ability of the word spirit after it is activated. Magneto was actually explaining Damon's ability to Li Ji. After all, Damon himself was not very familiar with his ability. Li Ji needed to know where the upper limit of Damon's ability was, and then make a detailed plan. If the preset conditions are not enough, then the person who casts the word spirit will need to pay a price in exchange. As for what the preset conditions are, I'm not very clear either. Because this ability is very strange. Even among mutants, very few people have similar abilities. Li Ji was a little curious, since so few people have this ability, how did you know? Magneto pointed to the north, because this country has a mutant with the ability of word spirit. In fact, he is a military man, and has been promoted all the way to the position of general. His ability is word spirit, but his word spirit ability is not very strong. It is necessary to make various preset conditions for him based on the country, and only when these conditions are met will he activate his ability. In fact, he has been hiding his identity as a mutant, because if people from other countries know his true identity, then his word spirit ability will not be so strong. Because everyone will be on guard against what he says. Li Ji touched his chin and said with some doubt, "Is this general's surname Zhang?" Magneto showed an expression of non-committal, but did not answer Li Ji's question. On the other side of the table, Professor Charles was pouring some liquid into Blue Devil's cup. While pouring, he said to Blue Devil, "You'd better drink all of this. I mixed it with juice and honey, so it shouldn't taste too bad." Although Professor X said this, Blue Devil raised the cup and smelled it, and then he was a little disgusted by the smell of the liquid in the cup. He took the cup away and said, "What is this? It smells so pungent, it's just high concentration alcohol." Professor Charles took the cup back and placed it in front of Blue Devil. "This is the tonic that Nightwalker got from Kamartaki. I heard that the temple of Kamartaki's alchemy is in Hong Kong. So he can get this thing for you so conveniently. This is a potion made by the temple mages to speed up the recovery of wounds. The effect is a bit strong, and ordinary people can't stand it. Only mages and mutants with good physical fitness, cyborgs, mutants, etc., can use this medicine." Charles said seriously. "Drinking this will speed up your wound recovery. Medicines never taste good," but Nightwalker asked. "Besides the pungent smell, there is no special taste. It tastes like strong liquor. You can mix it with fruit juice and honey to improve the taste. So drink it quickly." At the request of Professor Charles, Blue Devil had to close his eyes and drink all the drinks in the cup in one gulp. After drinking it, he felt his entire throat burning. "Oh my god, I feel like I drank a ball of fire." Blue Devil couldn't speak clearly. Damon, who was eating shrimp dumplings and barbecued pork buns silently on the other side of the table, looked at the bottle of drink in front of Blue Devil, and then lowered his head silently. Because he saw the Chinese words written on the bottle or, "So fat injection milk," note. "Oh my god, this group of people is terrible. I should want to join the Brotherhood of Mutants. Wouldn't it be better to go to Shanghai to be a foreign teacher quietly? Can I quit now?" Exclamation mark. Damon wanted to cry. But that's how life is. Once you make a choice, you can't back down. Just like now, Damon saw Nightwalker taking out a lot of bottles from somewhere. These bottles, which were packaged like saline, were labeled with all kinds of terrible labels: antibacterial injection for swine fever, insecticide blending solution type A, weak paraquat, for potted plants, etc. Nightwalker gave everyone a bottle and claimed that these things were good to drink. He also gave himself a bottle of paraquat, strong type, and said with a smile, "Try it, it tastes very good." Damon's expression was stiff. What? Actually I don't drink. P.S. Note: the public identity of the Kamartaki Hong Kong Temple is a chemical pharmaceutical company. These are disguised packaging. Please vote, please subscribe. Chapter 786, A Fight for Life with Guidance. In fact, for Lee Ji, Magneto has always been an unstable factor. Because this old hippie has never been a law-abiding person. He had a good time in his life and was a hero for a while. But in the end, he turned evil. Although the Illuminati has used various methods to make him reluctantly reach a willingness to cooperate. But is everything safe? This needs to be questioned. Professor Charles is not able to completely tie Magneto's chain, at least not now. If a person has no worries, then he's the most terrible. The kind of person who only cares about himself and thinks he can live well even if the whole world dies as long as he is good. That kind of person is extremely selfish. He can only rob other people's treasures. If others touch him, they think that the other party is a bad person who is unforgivable. People who are extremely self-centered are the most terrible. Of course, Magneto is not self-centered to this extent. And the Brotherhood of Mutants is also a concern of his, but this concern is not particularly strong. It would be best if Magneto had a concern that forced him to work hard, or even required him to make a willing sacrifice. And where is this concern? Lee Ji already has the answer in his mind. That is Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. They are now probably controlled by Hydra just like Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. And they were captured since childhood, and maybe they were brainwashed since childhood. Will they recognize Magneto as their father? It's hard to say. But it's worth a try after all. After all, I also have the experience of saving Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, although there was a little problem. So maybe I can find a way to save the fate of this pair of lost siblings. At least the recognition of father and daughter, father and son, is a happy ending. In this way, Magneto may be able to devote himself to production and construction, and contribute to the great cause of human progress. So after Magneto and Professor Charles settled the Blue Devil, Lee Ji found Damon. So you said you can win the lottery if you want? Lee Ji asked Damon while eating sweet potato soup for supper. You mean you can win hundreds of millions if you want? Lee Ji felt that this ability was a bit against the sky. If there was such a strong ability, just disrupting the global economic market would make the whole world in chaos. Damon had no desire to drink the sweet potato soup. He was still worried about drinking a bottle of Paraquat at dinner. So his answer was a bit absent-minded. It's not that easy to use. There's a price to pay, just like winning the Euro Millions lottery. I need to donate 90% of the prize money. And I don't know if the bad luck I suffered is also part of the price. Now I still have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. In addition, this time I just wanted to escape from the chaos of the battle smoothly, but I was brought here by the Blue Devil and met you. I really don't know whether this is fortunate or unfortunate. Damon wanted to say, it's really unfortunate. But when the words came to his lips, he finally held back. Lee Ji said without thinking, of course it's lucky. This is actually a major turning point in your life? Lee Ji said happily. Damon asked with some doubts, is it? I almost died in the hands of Magneto. Yes. Your life will reach its peak this time. Lee Ji knows very well what it means to speak to people in a human way and to speak to ghosts in a ghost way. In just one day of contact, including observations at the dinner table at night, he has discovered Damon's human weaknesses. It is precisely because Lee Ji has this expertise that he is particularly good at diverting troubles and setting traps for people. For example, Damon, Lee Ji observed that his heart is not as strong as his appearance. Anyway, he is very cowardly when he should be cowardly. When he was in Chile, Professor Charles checked his memory and knew that he had never killed anyone in all these years as a Hydra. He didn't even fire a shot in a formal battle. And such a person can almost get into the middle level of Hydra. In addition, the main reason for his leaving Hydra was that he felt that his salary was not equal to his efforts. All these considerable conditions made Lee Ji judge that Damon was actually a person who was a little timid, a little utilitarian, and selfish, but not completely without integrity in the face of major issues. There are actually many such people, and some people think that such people are not able to take on major responsibilities. But Lee Ji thinks the key is where to use them. As long as they are used in the right place, such people can really show their talents. Especially people with Damon's ability. However, Lee Ji needs Damon to be willing to cooperate with his action plan sincerely, so he needs to lure Damon to take the bait himself. Instead of forcing him to do it, it is easy to go wrong. Since Damon can rebel against Hydra, it may not be impossible to find an opportunity to rebel here. Lee Ji said in a step-by-step and persuasive way, You just heard what Magneto said at the dinner table. In this country, there is a person with the same ability as you who has become a general. And you have been a soldier in Hydra. Do you think it is appropriate? Damon shook his head like a rattle. Leiji nodded. Besides, being a Hydra is not only risky, but also shady. I guess you are not married yet. Damon sighed. I am too busy with work, and there are too few women at work. Even if there are, they are terrible. There was a kind of resentment in his words, as if he had experienced something. But Leiji didn't want to delve into Damon's previous private life. Leiji just continued, but have you ever thought about getting married and having children? Damon nodded, indicating that this was also one of his life visions. Well, then, do you want your children to say, "My dad is a member of Hydra," when they introduce their father in school in the future? Or do you want your children to say, "My dad is a member of Hydra," or, "My dad is a superhero, he saved the world"? I think you should understand the difference. In fact, what Leiji said was also what Damon had been thinking about, so he wanted to retire and come to China to be a foreign teacher. But now Leiji has given Damon a road that seems more glorious than the foreign teacher. If you are willing, I can hire you in the name of the organization or in the name of an individual, and hire you to be a hero. Damon was a little confused. What does it mean? It means literally. Hire a hero. Leiji said seriously, your job is to be a hero and cooperate with us to fight crime. Being a hero is no longer a lofty term for you, but a practical job. You only need to use your abilities occasionally, and we will prepare various conditions for you to reduce the cost. You will have salary, vacation, 5 insurances and 1 housing fund and various guarantees in the future. We can give you calling fees in the summer. Even if you exceed the performance of fighting criminals within a year, we can give you more year-end bonuses. Leiji's words made Damon's eyes brighter and brighter. Leiji accurately grasped Damon's thoughts. Putting aside his identity as a former Hydra member, Damon is actually a person in the heart of a small citizen. There are small bad things but no big evils. There are small good things but no big good things. There is conscience and integrity, but it is not as hard as a rock. Every word of Leiji touched Damon's heart. Hire hero? It sounds much better than Hydra's mercenaries. And it sounds like the benefits, salary and treatment are much better. So Damon's eyes lit up, and he couldn't wait to ask Leiji, so when can I start work and get paid? I will definitely do my job well. Leiji smiled. Since you are willing, then for the sake of confidentiality, you need to sign a soul contract with me first. Don't worry, it's not the kind of devil asking you to sell your soul. When the time is right, you read this paragraph out. Leiji handed Damon a piece of paper. After Damon read the Chinese on it, he looked at Leiji in shock. He couldn't speak for a long time. Nightwalker is really too cruel, really too cruel. This is to kill Hydra. Leiji said with a smile. Then now, Damon, sign a soul contract with me. From now on, you will become a hired hero, and a bright future is waiting for you. Damon looked at what was written on the paper and thought about Leiji's previous promise. Finally, I gritted my teeth and stamped my feet, and decided to die. We should always give it a try in life. Chapter 787, Make Plans Early. The incident in Hong Kong was actually quite a big deal. Although the outside world was not clear about what happened, the power holders within the government were well aware of it. I personally disagree with the establishment of a branch of the Brotherhood of Mutants in Hong Kong. A certain committee member said, the Brotherhood of Mutants is essentially not much different from a terrorist organization. If people knew that we were involved with a Brotherhood of Mutants, it would be easy for them to catch us. Our national reputation would be ruined. The committee member spoke passionately. But his words were sneered by another big boss. Hey, which side are you on? Commissioner, what? The big boss continued to sneer. I ask you, which side are you on? Were you sent by the Americans? The commissioner was furious. What did you say? Are you slandering my loyalty to the country? The big boss said calmly, since you are loyal to the country, then you should understand that what you just said is bullshit. Have you been taught in school and become stupid? Do you really take dogmatism as the truth every day? Don't think that you are an authority just because you have taught many students now. You are still far from governing the country. The big boss criticized the commissioner mercilessly. This commissioner is the principal of a certain official training school. It is not an exaggeration to say that he has students all over the world. So he can enter the core think tank of the government and make suggestions on the country's policies. But as the big boss said before, this commissioner is a little stupid when teaching. Of course, some other political considerations cannot be ruled out. After all, since ancient times, the methods used for internal struggles and the methods used to unite against the outside are different. Can reputation be used to make a living? The boss continued to criticize harshly. Have you forgotten who is secretly condoning the Ten Commandments gang on our western border? Because of the existence of the Mandarin, we almost gave up the development of the West for 30 years. A large number of northwestern indigenous people were forced to migrate eastward. Now the population ratio in the entire West is seriously unbalanced, and a lot of land is barren. Some lands are even neglected and are beginning to show desertification. We still need to govern them again. Do you understand the feelings of those people who are forced to leave their homes because of security issues and wars? The boss stared at the committee member with his eyes like a tiger, the major outlet of the eastern coast, the Pacific Ocean. Do you understand where we are? Don't keep looking at island chains, look further ahead. There is no strait suitable for international navigation that we can control. At least not now. In order to compete for control of these straits, Europeans fought for hundreds of years during the Age of Discovery. And the United States controls global maritime hegemony because of the two world wars, which was snatched from other European countries as a condition of interest. Our country is in a suffocating state. The Ten Commandments gang is committing crimes on our northwest border, and any materials transported from China by land are easily robbed by them. Is it ever peaceful in the Pacific? Reputation? Do you really think anyone really cares? The boss was really merciless this time, and he scolded the committee members in a way that hit them in the face. Although the committee members have many disciples, their status is not as high as that of the boss. Moreover, the boss is a faction that holds real power, which is completely different from his purely political and labor system officials. Therefore, the committee members who were scolded by the boss could only blush, but they could not jump up and criticize the boss. We can't get by using sea transportation, so we have been considering developing land transportation. Including the high-speed rail project, we have actually been working on it. It's just that the Ten Rings gang is like a thorn in our throat. If there weren't some people behind the scenes, we would have eliminated the Mandarin even at a painful price. The boss continued to explain his position. Now because of the surprise attack in the Battle of New York, we can join hands with Latvia and the new Eastern European Union to eliminate this major threat. We can even join the super high-speed rail project now, so that our entire national plan can be completed in another way. Do you understand how long we have waited for this day and how many people have died? The boss's tiger-like gaze finally made the committee member bow his head. Put away your little thoughts. Don't think I don't know what you are thinking. The boss finally said sternly, at least what a brotherhood of mutants is doing now is beneficial to us. Zheng Xian. The boss called Zheng Xian, the director of the SHIE Bureau, who was also attending the meeting. Zheng Xian was concentrating on spinning a pen at the other end of the conference table, and he didn't seem to care about the previous discussion at all. He didn't turn around until the boss called him. Zheng Xian spoke before the boss asked, I have sent the conferred God team to deal with it. And let them contact Magneto. I believe they will get a satisfactory answer. The boss nodded with satisfaction after hearing this. Finally, he looked around the meeting room and said, the tone of the Hong Kong incident has basically been set. No one is allowed to mention it again in the future. After the meeting, Zheng Xian stayed alone. He needed to discuss some things with the boss. Nebin and the African Union of Eight, I know that they are openly resisting the European Union. I can't say whether it is good or bad for them to do so. If the European Union completely cuts off their external import resources, these countries may not be able to hold on for long. The boss said these words while stroking his chin. Zheng Xian had just told the boss about Nebin and other countries coming to China to seek help. The boss looked at Zheng Xian a little puzzled. Shouldn't this matter be handed over to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Why did they come to you? Zheng Xian said helplessly, come to think of it, they may really need to come to me for this matter. Because they brought some new friends. The boss touched his jade ring. What friends? Tuvalu. In fact, this country has been completely transformed into a mutant country. Zheng Xian brought a groundbreaking news. They have gathered a large number of mutants to establish this country. They even provided support to small countries in Namibia and Africa. This matter is still being carried out in secret, but it can't be concealed forever. The boss was stunned by the news brought by Zheng Xian. What? Zheng Xian smiled and signaled the boss not to be too excited. Don't be too excited. In fact, This group of mutants are moderates. They were organized by Charles students. They are not radicals like the Brotherhood of Mutants. And they are here to seek consensus. The rise of mutants seems to be becoming a formality. The boss remained silent. He was playing with his jade ring. After a long time, he sighed. Is there any news from Shang-Chi and Li Qianhuan? They are doing a good job in SWRD. And they have had contact with Director Rogers. Rogers is not a politician in the traditional sense, he is more like a statesman. He has vision and revenge, not for personal reasons, but for a high level of overall planning. His perspective has begun to break away from a single nation and country. Many of his considerations are based on the future of the entire Earth and all of humanity. Zheng Xian reminded, in fact, they have obtained some information from the research institute supported by the Horizon Foundation about the predictable direction of the world. Our society has developed rapidly to a turning point. It is actually difficult for a single country to exist in the cosmic age. Because humans have discovered extraterrestrial civilizations, the Battle of New York has allowed us to see the gap between us and them. This incident will continue to ferment and affect our sense of perception and identity of civilized political systems. More and more people will slowly realize the fragility of a single country in the face of a powerful and collective alien civilization. The big man nodded. This is also why we dealt with the Zero-Hour Earth Federation Agency, and why SWRD was established. We have actually foreseen all of this. When humans really enter the space age, whether it's China, the United States, Russia or France, the concept of the country will gradually disappear. Tony Stark has already begun planning to build the first starport for mankind. Perhaps the day in fantasy novels when starports and space battleships become the safest residences for humans will really come. By that time, it will be difficult for us to use region or race to divide the belonging of mankind. Zheng Xian said with emotion. Because the universe is so vast that we can't imagine it, the number of lives in the universe may also exceed our imagination. The big man took out a pack of peony cigarettes from his jacket pocket, took out a cigarette and started smoking, saying between puffs of smoke, maybe one day humans will be able to achieve great harmony, or in other words, achieve great harmony in the cognition of the attribute of human. But that's probably a long time in the future. We need to go through all kinds of hardships to complete this unprecedented proposition. I don't think we will see that day. Zheng Xian, your life and mine are limited. We can't see what will happen hundreds of years later. Hearing this, Zheng Xian wanted to say something, but the big man waved his hand to stop him, motioning him to listen to him. But this doesn't mean we don't need to worry about what will happen hundreds of years later. I believe that struggles will still exist in these hundreds or even thousands of years. We need more friends to help us gain a foothold before the arrival of the cosmic age. The big man took a deep puff of the cigarette, almost inhaling 1/5 of its length. We once gave up the ocean, but now we can't give up the universe. Regardless of whether mankind will be united in the future, we must make our own preparations. Those who do not plan for eternity are not qualified to plan for the present. The United States has Director Rogers, who was a hero of all mankind during World War II. The Battle of New York pushed him to another peak. He was able to boldly promote SWRD and even the Earth Federation. There was also his shadow behind him. We even know that he was trying to encircle Hydra and planning the construction of Starport with Tony Stark. In fact, they are already ahead step by step. The boss was smoking a cigarette, and Zheng Xian couldn't see his expression in the smoke. We can't fall too far behind. We can't fall behind anymore. We have to think of a way. After saying this, the boss's eyes began to blur. He was thinking about something, and his eyes looked unfocused. It took a long time for the boss to come back to his senses. He flicked the cigarette that had burned to the butt into the trash can and stood up. He said to Zheng Xian, "Go and get in touch with the mutants in Tuvalu. China has always been a country friendly to mutants. As long as Tuvalu can guarantee that they are a pacifist country and not a mutant country that wants to start a violent revolution. As long as they can guarantee this, we can talk about everything." The boss looked at the lotus pond outside the office window. The world has changed. I remember a book that said, when humans step out of the earth and into the universe, when you take the first step, are you still the same person? Zheng Xian, maybe we should have prepared early. The boss looked at Zheng Xian, and Zheng Xian nodded seriously. P.S. Because of reasons that everyone knows, many things in this chapter cannot be described in detail. I can only write it in the style of the spring and autumn period. So it was very painful for me to write this chapter, But I still had to write it. Because the background situation still needs to be explained. A group of people led by the protagonist profoundly changed the political environment of this world. A single move affects the entire body. It is no longer the case that you do your own thing and the world around you does nothing. Therefore, the changes in China's political situation in this regard also need to be briefly explained to pave the way for the following stories. Of course, there are many places that cannot be written, so please use your imagination. Please forgive me, that's all. Also, please vote. Chapter 788, this was done by Hydra. Hong Kong. Damon has decided to join what Li Ji calls hired heroes. Compared to the unstable job at Hydra, and the often inexplicable reduction in salary and bonuses, the conditions offered by Nightwalker are undoubtedly much more generous. Not only does it give Damon better welfare conditions, but it also provides him with a better identity. This is a role with far more status than a Hydra mercenary. Become a glorious masked hero. Of course, if Damon wants, he can also be unmasked. But Damon thinks it's better to be masked. He doesn't want to be recognized by his former Hydra colleagues. After all, the fate of being a traitor is not very good. Well, the master of imitation sneezed in the distance. Li Ji has even helped Damon think of a nickname that is loud enough for him to use. Poison milk color. Damon was a little confused. Why should I call it this nickname? This name doesn't sound majestic and domineering at all. And inexplicably, hearing this name will make people think of milk powder or something. Eh? Li Ji looked at Damon in surprise. Not good. Damon shook his head. Very, very bad. Don't forget, I can hear and understand the meaning of Chinese. Poisonous milk color, it doesn't sound good. People with this name or nickname will probably be cursed for life. Just like a milk powder factory. Li Ji touched his chin. It's not easy. Damon seems to know Chinese culture inexplicably. His naming plan seems to have failed. In fact, he seems to have never succeeded in naming in this world. His nickname Nightwalker was called by others, and then he started to use it. The Night's Watch Alliance was also named after everyone considered it together, and it finally became a conventional name. He originally wanted to call the Illuminati the League of Legends or the Watchers Alliance. But it was also rejected by Tony. It seems that he has never successfully named anything or any organization. Li Ji felt that this seemed a bit wrong, just like a person leaves his name after death and a wild goose leaves its voice after passing by. He always wanted to give something a very personal name, even if it was a bad taste. So the hired hero Damon became his test subject. Li Ji threw out a new nickname. What about the civilian prophet? Damon looked disdainful. Then are there military, commercial, and police ones? Too unindividualized. People need some creativity. Creativity. How about calling me the Iron-Knuckled Guy? Li Ji came up with another good name. Am I going to go out and perform? There is no such clause in the employment contract. Damon said half seriously and half jokingly. He still refused. After that, Li Ji proposed various, creative, nicknames, but Damon declined them all. Nightwalker was instantly angry. He stood up and said, "What do you want to be called?" Damon said cautiously, "Actually, I think it's good to just call me the word spirit, right? Simplicity is beauty. We don't need to make it so fancy." Li Ji touched his chin. Why not try the word spirit Crowthier? Crow is also a good middle name. Absolutely. Damon said righteously. While the two were discussing Damon's nickname and what kind of sentences should be used to activate Damon's ability so that Li Ji's plan could be successfully implemented, the professor appeared here and brought a message. The people from the SHIE are contacting Magneto. They need an explanation for the Hong Kong matter. It is not surprising that the people from the SHIE will come to Hong Kong to investigate. This is Chinese territory. They have the right and obligation to do this. In particular, the semi-underground branch of the Brotherhood of Mutants in Hong Kong is actually tacitly approved by the SHIE. It's just like the sentence that has been said countless times, politics has no warmth. The United States can support certain organizations to deal with its enemies, and China is the same. It's just that you do it on the first day and I do it on the 15th. The reason why the Hong Kong branch has been able to exist for a long time is largely because of the tacit approval of the SHIE and because Magneto has never caused any trouble here. When the Weather Witch brought several of her subordinates to Hong Kong and contacted the Brotherhood of Mutants through secret channels before, they were waiting for Magneto's reply. Because Magneto seems to have disappeared for a while recently, Weather Witch and her group are not sure whether they can get a response quickly. But this time, they seem to have good luck. When they just sought to meet Magneto, the Mutant Brotherhood sent a message: Magneto is in Hong Kong. Weather Witch is a typical Chinese beauty, but as the captain of the Comfort God Squad, she is full of heroism. Her pair of sword eyebrows are more heroic than many men. This look easily reminds people of the Dongfang Bubei played by Brigitte Lin in the past. She performed another kind of domineering as a woman. And her right-hand assistant Sword Saint also came to Hong Kong to work with Weather Witch. This is a person who looks like a game character called Genji in a certain game after wearing the Sword Saint suit, but after taking off the Sword Saint suit, she is a pure and capable woman. Long black hair and oval face, with a fit body. Beautiful appearance but deadly body. However, Sword Saint Girl is not a very cold person except in combat missions. For example, she has a good relationship with Weather Witch in private. At the same time, he would complain about trivial matters in life. For example, now, the Sword Master is lying on the big bed in the hotel room, playing with his mobile phone and saying to the witch, we actually won. The witch is flipping through a book and quietly waiting for the time to meet Magneto. She doesn't know much about esports, so she asked casually, what is we? The Sword Master rolled his eyes at her. Sister, please keep up with the times. The prize pool of LOL competitions has reached millions of dollars. It is already a big boss in the entire esports circle. You should check Weibo occasionally. The witch thought about it and decided to give up. She shook her head. LOL, Tencent or something like that. Seriously, can you read something serious after work to improve yourself? Don't play games and browse your phone every day. Facing the witch's teachings, the Sword Saint turned around and rolled her eyes secretly, and said, okay. It's just entertainment. You see, those American heroes have Twitter and blogs. We should also open an official account and a WeChat public account. This is called keeping up with the times, okay? So, what you call keeping up with the times is to wear the most advanced individual melee armor, sword, that the Spear Bureau spent a lot of money to build to attend an anime exhibition. And then cost that Genji thing. The Weather Witch criticized the female Sword Saint for abusing public resources for personal gain without mercy. If director Zhang Xian hadn't turned a blind eye to you, you would have been put in solitary confinement and written a self-criticism. You will not be allowed to go online for a month. You are not allowed to touch any electronic devices. You may even be sent to an internet addiction treatment center. Hearing such a severe punishment, the Sword Master shuddered. No. It's just playing a game and surfing the internet. Is it that serious? Look, Chairman Yao Ming also plays Warcraft. He is also the chairman of the Mutant Union in the Yangtze River Delta. You always make excuses for yourself. The Weather Witch was about to say something to the Sword Master. After all, she is still relatively young, and as a senior, she has the obligation to keep her back from going astray. But just as she was about to say something, the Weather Witch's ears moved, and her face immediately became serious. Get up quickly. I think Magneto should have arrived. Not long after the Weather Witch finished speaking, the two of them heard a knock on the door outside, which matched the secret signal that was previously passed to Magneto through the pipe. In the room, Magneto held his glass and looked at the green tea leaves floating in the glass without drinking it. Instead, he quietly blew away the overflowing steam. He was as quiet as an ordinary old man, and looked harmless. Of course, both the witch and the Sword Master knew how strong the old man in front of them was. Don't be deceived by his appearance, he is one of the strongest people on Earth. So, the Weather Witch was considering how to start. After all, facing Magneto directly was still stressful. But before the Weather Witch finished speaking, Magneto spoke. His tone was indifferent, but he was absolutely sure this was done by Hydra. Weather Witch and Sword Master, huh? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 789. It's not easy to pass the blame. Yes, it was Hydra who did it. Magneto said confidently. It seemed that all the evils in the world could not escape this terrible organization. Magneto held the green tea in his hand, looked at the Weather Witch and the Sword Master and said, "This was done by Hydra." Huh? The two ladies looked at Magneto a little confused, and didn't know what to say for a while. Magneto ignored their surprise. He blew the steam rising from the cup, and then took a sip of green tea. The witch and the sword master looked at each other and found that each other's eyes were a little confused. The weather witch rubbed her temples, and she asked Magneto with some doubts, "What do you mean it was done by Hydra? Do you know what we want to ask?" Magneto took another sip of green tea. "Of course I know. Isn't it the Lan Kuei Fong incident? It was done by Hydra." His tone was firm and unquestionable. The weather witch sighed secretly, and she said somewhat helplessly, "Well, although Hydra is the main villain organization in this world, and the country is also seeking to encircle and suppress Hydra, but you can't put everything on Hydra." Magneto. "Tell the truth, is there anyone seeking revenge on you? Because we have concluded from the data of the on-site inspection that it is the mutants who caused all this destruction. Is there something wrong with the Brotherhood of Mutants?" The weather witch's eyes were sharp. In fact, there was such a guess within the SHIELD. Is there something wrong with the Brotherhood of Mutants, such as someone trying to seize power from Magneto or something? This led to the outbreak of the Hong Kong incident. This is also the last thing the SHIELD wants to see. Because the Brotherhood of Mutants is temporarily controllable because of a tacit understanding between them and Magneto. Once this tacit balance is broken. For example, if a fool who does not have Magneto's ability but is more ambitious than Magneto comes to power, then the SHIELD needs to prepare for the worst, and maybe they have to clear out the entire Brotherhood of Mutants secret lines in China, mainly concentrated in Hong Kong and Taiwan. Listen, Magneto. I'm a mutant too. The weather witch pointed at herself. She was a very outstanding mutant. In terms of ability control, she was basically the same as Charles Student-Storm, and the ability level was almost the same. In fact, there are many people in the country who sympathize with their fellow foreign mutants. That's why the Brotherhood of Mutants can get all kinds of support in China, even if it's only secretly, but you should also understand how much risk there is. Today, I'll put aside my side as a member of the SHIELD and a Chinese government official. Just as a mutant, I'm asking you, is the Brotherhood of Mutants still under your control? The weather witch asked very seriously. Magneto glanced at the weather witch lightly, and slowly said, "Do you think anyone can replace me?" This sentence shows the momentum of being a top mutant. If Magneto wants to do something, there are very few people in the world who can stop him. The last time the Illuminati caught Magneto, they took advantage of Magneto's trust in Professor Charles, and then calmly laid a trap, and finally successfully persuaded him. Otherwise, if you want to defeat Magneto, that will cost you a terrible price. The weather witch looked at Magneto seriously, and after making sure that he was not lying, she continued to ask, "Well, what's going on? You can't put all the dirty water on Hydra. After all, they are not specifically taking the blame. At least there should be a suitable reason." In the suite of the Central Hotel, Li Ji learned the details of Magneto's conversation with the weather witch through Professor Charles. Because Magneto Marx is sharing brain waves with Charles, Charles can hear and see everything Marx is experiencing now. Then here Li Ji and the professor will help Marx think about how to deal with the investigation of the Chinese SHIEA, and how to smoothly carry out the plan to make Hydra jump into the pit. Of course, the SHIEA is also a helper to this plan. At the same time, on the BJ side, the mutant country Tuvalu formed by Katie and Xavier's genius students has begun to contact the government here. Charles' students, school teachers, are helping the younger generation of mutants. This is a very important matter, and the accident in Hong Kong cannot affect BJ's plan. After all, it is a major event related to the future of the entire mutant race. So now the weather witch does not know that she is actually facing not only Magneto, but 3 people including Magneto. In the Central Hotel, Li Ji shook his head. Magneto is too eager. He didn't need to throw out Hydra so early. This aroused the other party's suspicion. He suspected that he was deliberately throwing dirty water on Hydra and accusing them to cover up the truth. In this way, we need to spend more time convincing the people of the Spear Bureau to make them believe that everything is a conspiracy of Hydra. Professor Charles did not comment on this. He just defended Magneto Marx. Marx's personality is like this. This matter itself was done by Hydra. Sometimes he likes to speak directly. After all, Marx is not professional in accusing and throwing dirty water. Professor Charles looked at Li Ji when he said these words. Li Ji felt strange. Can you stop looking at me like that? Professor? You look as if I am a professional accuser. Professor Charles made a non-committal expression of, God knows. Well, Li Ji is not going to argue too much about this matter. Magneto sighed. The reason is very simple, whether which. Hydra wants to make trouble. Magneto spoke these words very slowly. He seemed serious, but in fact, it was because Charles passed their opinions to Magneto through brain waves, and Magneto gave feedback, and the three of them held a meeting through Charles. So Magneto spoke very slowly. But this also has an advantage. This slow speaking speed increases the credibility of Magneto's words, because it looks very serious. I did a lot of things before, and I picked a lot of Hydra's branches. I have a personal grudge with him, and I don't want to mention the specifics. But what I did seriously damaged the interests of Hydra. And now I heard that the superheroes in the United States are besieging other industries of Hydra. So I guess Hydra is anxious. Magneto spoke these words slowly, and these words sounded quite logical. Weather Witch listened very carefully. She needed to judge the cause and effect of this incident, and then decide how to deal with the whole incident. So they want to stir up trouble. The Hong Kong branch of the Brotherhood of Mutants is semi-underground, so it's not difficult for Hydra to find it. I guess they want to use this incident to cause a large terrorist incident, so that the tacit understanding between you and me will be broken. Then, they may want to expand this incident, and maybe they will do a bigger case to make us completely break up. The Swordmaster interrupted here, what's the point? Magneto smiled. To stir up trouble. The more peaceful the world is, the less chance Hydra has to turn over. Only when there is chaos can they find a way to get rid of the shackles. If they continue to increase the crisis of the matter, and even split the Brotherhood of Mutants, and even the mutants in China. For example, they create a large number of terrorist incidents, what do you think will happen to China? The Swordmaster's face was as dark as water. There will be chaos, especially in the East, which has been quiet for many years. Yes, that's why I came when I received your invitation to meet. We have a common enemy, and the existence of Hydra is not a good thing for China. Why don't we join forces and set a trap for them? I will find a way to catch the mutant controlled by Hydra. Magneto said this with a smile, and the core of this sentence is to join forces to set a trap. Li Ji wants to use Damon's ability, but Damon's ability requires various costs. Some costs may be impossible to pay. So if you want to reduce the difficulty of activating the ability and reduce the backlash, they need to preset various appropriate conditions. And the purpose of Magneto's visit this time is to preset one of these conditions through the SHIE. As long as all the conditions are preset, Damon will activate his ability. Li Ji believes that that day will be the end of Hydra. Compared with Li Ji's ease in throwing dirty water every time, Magneto is really not suitable for this. Maybe he can give speeches and incite people on the stage, but that's because he believes that what he says is true. But blaming others, or even making something out of nothing? These things are really not what he is good at. Especially, you should use words to lead others so that they can follow this line of thought. Even if you don't know that you have been sold, you still help others count money or something. This is really not easy to do. Now Magneto King Marks finally admires Li Ji a little. At least not everyone has his shameless face. No wonder you all call him the blame-shifting king behind his back. Marx secretly admired in his heart, you really can't do these things, and the Illuminati really needs such a person. It's really amazing. I'm a little suspicious. Is this person also a mutant? Is his mutant ability thick-skinned, throwing dirty water, accusing and sharp-tongued? Professor Charles received Marx's brain waves, and he couldn't help laughing in the suite in Central. Especially after he looked at Li Ji, he couldn't help laughing. Li Ji looked at Professor Charles and asked in confusion, what's wrong with me? Haha, no it's okay, I just thought of a great joke. Haha Professor Charles' mouth corners raised. P.S. Please vote. Chapter 790 Red Skull's Ambition. Bermuda. Schmidt was very satisfied with the offensive in Hong Kong this time. His plan was simple and complicated. In fact, he just wanted to use Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch to stir up trouble. The result of discussing with Li Ji and the professor was very close. Schmidt would constantly let Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver make all kinds of big news and keep making trouble. Until the people were angry, he would return the pair of children to Magneto. Schmidt was thinking whether he should give a touching speech at that time. After all, an old father and his children have been separated for nearly 50 years. Will he be excited to cry when he reunited again? Maybe there should be some tear-jerking background music? Let Magneto have a good father-daughter, father-son, unity. This is a happy ending. Schmidt suddenly felt that he was actually still a very good person. Look, didn't I reunite your family? If it weren't for me, would you be able to find your father, children? You need to thank me for this. So when Magneto receives such a big gift from him, shouldn't he also take the blame for the chaos caused by his children? This is natural, isn't it? Schmidt tapped his chin gently with his index finger and thumb, and said to himself in his private office, "Isn't this good? A touching reunion." Then it is accompanied by the old father paying for the mistakes made by his young children. First the Brotherhood of Mutants, then China and SHIELD, and drag it in. Kill more people, make more things. Mix everything up. Schmidt smiled gently. This plan actually has a bit of a fair and above-board taste. Even when Magneto knew about this conspiracy, he had to take the blame. With Magneto's character, he must turn against those organizations and heroes to protect his children. In the end, there must be a big melee. In addition to Magneto's superpower, who wants to control him? That is very rare, plus I will give him Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch's gifts as his strength. Then the shock and impact will be even wider. Schmidt did these things deliberately for a reason. In fact, Hydra is in a very passive situation now. Schmidt clearly felt the pressure from all parties. Especially the damage caused by the betrayal of the traitor Taskmaster is very serious for Hydra. Although this traitor is only a middle-level staff of Hydra, he is not a core class. But this damn traitor is different from other mercenaries. TMD is actually a talent with great achievements in mathematics and economics. And his talent has never been made public, but carefully hidden. Few people know about Taskmaster's talent in this area, and more people just regard him as the king of mercenaries. Maybe his combat ability and tactical training are top-notch, but who would have thought that a mercenary is so cultured? Anyway, people like Crossbones Bullet can't understand those economic works that are like heavenly books. So no one pays attention to Taskmaster in this regard. As a result, this traitor obtained a lot of information through indirect means during his time at Hydra. After all, no one thought that it would be useful for a mercenary to obtain these scraps of information, and no one said anything about the core level. During his time at Hydra, the Master of Imitation was hiding his incompetence. He was always thinking about a plan for the second half of his life. His partnership with Deadpool was actually carefully planned. Outsiders were not aware of all this. The Master of Imitation, who was hiding his incompetence, combined the scraps of information he obtained with his own judgment and speculation, and combined the existing information on the market with industries that might be linked to Hydra. He himself listed a very detailed list of Hydra's assets, and the group's industrial chain ecological organization diagram. In addition to Hydra's secret industries, most of the other public industrial groups that are the main source of financial income for the group were actually guessed by the Master of Imitation. Although the data listed by the Master of Imitation was not all correct, at least 70% of them were correct. That's why after he submitted this letter of surrender, Captain Rogers and Director Hill only held a 10-minute meeting before deciding to accept all of the Master's conditions. Because this list of Hydra's ecological industrial structure chain is so critical. It almost holds the economic lifeline of Hydra. S.H.I.E.L.D. mobilized a group of people who do economic market analysis and let these people participate in the analysis of this list with the highest level of confidentiality. Just like in a war, there will always be weak points in the battlefield defense line. Conquering a weak point may lead to the collapse of the entire front. The same is true in market economic behavior. A huge ecological industrial chain will not end well if it is confronted head-on. Just like the conclusion reached by the Illuminati in the previous meeting. It may cause a wave of layoffs that will affect the world, because the industrial chain in modern society is a domino structure. One manufacturing job supports 4 service jobs, and these 5 jobs may correspond to 5 families, and the 5 families correspond to the industries that provide them with food, clothing, information, etc. Pushing Hydra's industry to break up is likely to cause a terrible wave of layoffs. The sudden unemployment of hundreds of millions of people is enough to trigger a financial tsunami around the world, and most of the fierce conflicts in this world started from economic problems. The Illuminati does not want to eliminate Hydra at the cost of millions of people losing their jobs and going bankrupt, wandering the streets. This price is a bit tragic, not much better than fighting a total war. So after professional analysis, the list provided by the Master of Imitation. The 3 major groups, Stark, Osborn, Costa, jointly attack the weak links in these industrial chains, using node attacks to suppress Hydra. In addition, Captain Rogers' inadvertent dealings with the bigwigs on Wall Street made them add fuel to the flames. The entire economic offensive against Hydra was controlled within a controllable range. But Schmidt clearly felt the malice of this world. He needs to break it all. He wants to provoke chaos and even war. But the person who provokes the war cannot be Hydra, at least not Hydra at the beginning. World War II more than 70 years ago has shown everything. Want a country to challenge the whole world alone? Schmidt thinks this is not feasible, especially now that he doesn't even have a country in his hands, and now he can only be regarded as a terrorist. Unless there is a chaotic time, it is difficult for such an organization to take advantage of the chaos, and it is impossible to realize Schmidt's ambitions and desires. Is this world peaceful? Not very peaceful. All kinds of chaos are placed on a delicate balance point by a big hand in the dark. It looks shaky, but in fact it is like a tumbler. And this big hand in the dark has been against him, and Schmidt still doesn't know who this biggest enemy is. There is no way to carry out targeted attacks on this enemy. The most important thing he can do now is to break the delicate balance of this world and let the whole world return to chaos. So he needs to think about where to stir up and what to do to muddy the water. Just as Schmidt was thinking about all this, his intelligence officer sent an urgent telegram. Leader, turn on the TV. Something big happened in China. Maybe this is our best chance. Chapter 791, just the beginning. Although the event of the establishment of a mutant nation started very early, it was proposed in an almost naive way by a group of young people such as Katie who were full of blood and had not thought too much. It started with a group of young people with a middle school temperament who wanted to change the world in their own way. They united all the forces they could unite, those seniors who graduated from Xavier's Genius School. Katie, Little Rogue, Ice Blade, Flash, Torrent and other young mutants used their sincerity and enthusiasm, as well as their wild ideas as lobbying capital. Until the sunspot Roberto Skeeta joined and proposed a feasible plan for their plan by a country. Taking this as an opportunity, Katie and others' ideas began to be realized step by step. Why didn't Charles and Magneto think of this method back then? This is probably related to their big hearts and big wishes. They all want to change the world in one breath, especially Magneto, whose ideas are particularly crazy. And this madness and vision make it difficult for them to bend down and do something that their students behind them can do. Katie kept her attitude low from the beginning. She just wanted to build a home. Not because of power, not because of ambition, just because of a dream. I stand here today and make a statement to you. It's not to show off or any other provocation. Katie, wearing a simple black suit, stood on the podium, her hands hidden behind her, trembling slightly. Because below her were thousands of media from all over the world, and many diplomatic embassy and consulate staff working in BJ. Everyone was shocked by the news interruption at 6 o'clock last night in BJ time. Many foreign media working in China asked the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the authenticity and specific details of the incident at night. At this time, what Lin Yun said to Feng Zai before was verified. We have a way to smooth things over this time. In fact, this incident is no longer a smooth thing. Feng Zai felt that it was almost the same as mixing concrete. The phone of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was blown up, and people from all over the world used it. As a grassroots cadre, Feng Zai didn't know whether the red-headed phone on the boss's desk also rang all night, but it should be similar. So after an emergency consultation for one night, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Spear Bureau and the Tuvalu delegation decided to hold a global press conference at noon the next day. As the president of Tuvalu, Katie came to state the purpose of the country and to preach her own ideas. When Katie stood in front of the stage, all the flashes began to flash at her. All the cameras were shooting at her. And almost all the reporters had such an idea in their hearts. What if the Tuvalu mutant nation was really established by this girl as a leader? Then these reporters would have a second idea. If this girl is really the leader, maybe these mutants are kind and harmless. It must be said that the first impression of a person is very important. Katie has a pure and sweet appearance, with neatly groomed chestnut long hair, curved eyebrows and big watery eyes. When the corners of her mouth are slightly raised, she will bring out dimples. Without makeup, she is invincible in youth. She looks like a girl next door, harmless to people and animals. At this moment, a mutant girl who was originally unknown and even bullied stood there, preaching her ideas to the audience all over the world in a confident tone. She was a little excited, but not afraid. because she knew she was not fighting alone. Behind her was the professor's sustenance, the trust of her companions, and countless people who were looking forward to having a home like her. Many people have doubts, and some people will doubt. How did a young girl like me become the president of Tuvalu? Katie smiled at the camera, trying to relieve her tension. Actually, I don't know the specific reason. It's just that I became the president inexplicably. I don't think it's because I'm a beautiful girl. Katie's words caused a good-natured laugh from the audience. Actually, I think, if there needs to be a reasonable explanation, I think it's because we have a common ideal. Katie stretched out a finger. Please forgive me, I can't say to everyone, I have a dream, like Martin Luther King did. Because the dreams of our predecessors are not exactly the same as ours. I also can't shout here and demand that the world demand fairness. Because the world itself is unfair. Mutants are not necessarily oppressed, nor do they necessarily oppress others. Mutants are not necessarily persecuted, nor do they necessarily persecute others. Katie said loudly. Everything I think, do and ask for is just to build a home. A place to shelter from the wind and rain, a harbor for people to keep warm and rest. And all of this is my original idea to promote all of this. I know that the world has all kinds of prejudices against mutants. Some people think we are tumors, think we are cancer. They think we are the source of all troubles. But I guess many people have not really come into contact with mutants, nor do they really understand us. It's like there's a wall between us, an invisible but real wall. We are guessing about the world on the other side of the wall. People inside the wall have told everyone how dangerous the other side of the wall is since childhood. Katie's speech became more and more sonorous and powerful. It seems that the other side of the wall is the abyss of the world, the nest of hell. So we hide on our side of the wall all our lives, never daring to look at the other side of the wall. Even if laughter and dance songs come from the other side. A Berlin Wall can separate two worlds. But it eventually collapsed. We pushed down the Berlin Wall, why can't we push down another Berlin Wall in our hearts? Pride and prejudice are the source of most disasters in this world. All I want is for everyone to put down their arrogance and face up to their prejudices. The Battle of New York has already shown the existence of alien civilizations. We don't need to work hard on internal strife. Tuvalu is just a home, a platform, a place where the world can truly know mutants. In a hotel in Central, Hong Kong. Magneto looked at Katie, who was talking on TV, and he suddenly felt that he was really old. His thoughts were far less energetic than this young girl. And he couldn't speak such a deafening voice in front of the global media. Thinking of this, he glanced at Charles. The manuscript you wrote for this girl named Katie is really good. Professor Charles forced a smile. Actually, this manuscript was not written by me. Magneto. Charles smiled at Magneto's somewhat confused expression. I think you should have guessed who wrote it. Magneto had a blank expression. Sure enough, he is a man who can only talk. By the way, where did he go? That Magneto was referring to was Li Ji. And where is Li Ji? He is setting the conditions for Damon to activate his ability. BJ's incident is just the beginning, and the United States needs to work harder. For example, arrange a meeting between the current president's chief think tank Donald and Captain Rogers. P.S. On the train, I got up at 6:30, ate something, and started typing. So I'm asking for votes. Note, Martin Luther King is a black pastor. He is the leader of the black equality movement in the United States. In Martin Luther King's era, white people were truly superior to black people. Chapter 792 for Glory and Dreams. People will have many ideas in their life. From a certain toy that you longed for in childhood to the heroic dream of your youth. Then to the young people who pointed out the country and wrote inspiring words, and then to the society where you smoothed your edges and corners and began to pursue money and power. How many people have abandoned their dreams? How many people were crushed by reality and gave up their dreams in their youth? Those times when you suddenly woke up in the middle of the night and felt that you were living like a shell. Do you regret it? Regret giving up some of your ideas? For example, put down the brush, leave the words, put on the formal clothes that you once hated so much, comb your hair and dress yourself up like a social elite. You start to care about various political meetings that you once hated so much, and you will look at some of the conclusions drawn from these meetings and the changes of people in power. Whether this is related to you or not, it may be a work requirement, or it may just be a capital for a group of social people to talk at the table. Maybe some people think this is a sign of maturity, but not everyone thinks so. People are different. Sometimes when you wash your face in the morning, looking at yourself in the mirror is so strange. The thoughts in my mind are so alienated and strange to the person in the mirror. Driving an ordinary SUV in the city, slowly and during the speed of 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, looking at myself in the rearview mirror, the person in the car seems so ordinary. Is this really me? There is no difference between me and the car drivers in front, behind, and on the left and right of the car stuck in the road. Where is my sense of existence as a person? Am I an independent life form? Or am I just an ordinary ant? Maybe there will be a group of young people riding large displacement motorcycles passing by, and the 800cc engine will burst out with a deafening roar. So conspicuous and unsociable in the city. In this era when successful people all drive cars, spending a sum of money that is no less than that of a car to buy a motorcycle? I am afraid that many people will think it is stupid. Maybe some people will complain about those unsociable and unruly riders and honk their horns wildly. But some people will suddenly wake up, and it was the same at a certain time in their lives. I used to be so unsociable, riding a motorcycle through the city at midnight to chase the wind and freedom. I have also used spray paint to paint my own street art on parks and buildings in the middle of the night. Or I have a 3-on-3 bullfight on a public basketball court. Maybe the game turns into a fight, and then you become friends. Maybe you skip an important class. Even if the professor may fail your course at the end of the semester, you still have to find a computer to watch a life and death battle of Barcelona, European football giants, just to fulfill your Barcelona dream. Life, these rebellious lives. Those years that once embraced innocent ideals. Some people may never return and become mature from then on. Of course, there is nothing wrong with maturity. Most people live maturely in the city. However, some people suddenly realize something when something special happens at a certain age. They don't want to live this mature life anymore. Maybe it's their nature, or maybe they are unwilling to be ordinary. Some people want to live a rebellious life again. He quit his job as a policeman and started training for war. He is a professional boxer. She quit her job as a teacher and took a paintbrush to travel through mountains and rivers. She is a painter. He quit his management job in a large company and started to wear anti-fall clothing to study writing techniques. He is a future conqueror of the Isle of Man. Note, the Isle of Man TT Global Motorcycle Race is the highest honor and the most dangerous race. And there is only honor but no prize money, only the champion has a prize money, and it is only £1,500. The finisher is the hero, so what are they doing it for? Donald, who is already in his 60s, is energetic. He said these words softly to Professor Rogers. Captain Rogers listened patiently. He didn't seem to care that the president's important staff was wasting his time. Although Captain Rogers is very, very busy now and has a lot of things to do. But he still responded to Donald with a smile. Why? Donald sighed. Maybe it's just because I want to prove that I exist. There are so many people in the world, so many that it's terrifying. It's like a drop of water in the sea. No one cares about an ordinary drop of seawater. There will always be people who are unwilling to live such an ordinary life. Ordinary like all living beings, they are trying their best to emit all the light and heat in their lives. Some people even do all this in a way of burning themselves. No matter how difficult the road ahead is, until the day when their lives burn to the end. They are still shouting and singing loudly, just to attract the whole world to prove themselves. Prove their value as a person. As a separate individual life. The affirmation and realization of the values of independence, freedom, self, existence, etc. Donald said with some emotion, for some people, life is not just about living. Captain Rogers nodded. In fact, today's meeting with Donald was not accidental, but carefully arranged. Even the current president didn't know that his most trusted aide met with Steve Rogers, the most prestigious hero and politician in the United States. This meeting was secretly arranged by Tony Stark, and Lee G led the night watch as an external reconnaissance to prevent any possible accidents and prevent anyone from spying on this meeting. Because this meeting may discuss a very sensitive issue, none of this can be known to outsiders. And this may be related to the follow-up of the Illuminati's reform plan for the entire Earth, and even the subsequent mutant policy and the entire social reform process. Captain Rogers picked up the paper cup in front of him, which contained coffee. He took a sip, and then said, "So, Mr. Donald, our meeting today should not be just to talk about these." Donald clenched his fists. "Of course not, Captain. I said all this today just to express my attitude. Rogers, what attitude? Donald, attitude towards life. Attitude towards living. I was inspired by your story when I was young, and I once aspired to be an outstanding person like you. But life smoothed my edges. As I said in my previous story, I mature. I thought I would live maturely forever. Until one day, I got up in the morning and brushed my teeth. I glanced in the mirror in front of me, and I suddenly realized that I was so old. Look at the wrinkles and white hair on my face. And the old hands. I also felt back pain when I got up. It was not because I did any heavy physical labor the day before, but simply because my body was aging. Donald said lightly. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, God, what has this guy been through? What has turned him into what he is today? Then I suddenly realized that the person in the mirror is me. In the best years of my life, I devoted all my energy to fighting for power. At this age, I suddenly realized, is this really what I want? I found a letter in my old belongings. It was written when I was in college, and the recipient was me 40 years later. None of the ambitions I set at that age have been realized. Donald looked at Captain Rogers and said seriously, Captain, I don't lack any material things at my age. I don't lack power and money at all. My property is enough for me to live a very rich and even luxurious life. Donald was outspoken about all this. As the most important staff member of the White House and even a think tank that can influence the president's decision, he has received political donations and he has the qualifications. Rogers did not comment on Donald's words, so, Mr. Donald, you don't ask for money or power now, what do you want? Donald smiled, maybe I'm a little greedy, Captain. My life is smoother and more successful than 99% of the people in this world. Originally, at my position and age, I should know how to restrain myself. But I'm still a little greedy, and this time it's not for any material things. What I want now is to fulfill the ideal of my youth, to build a better society. This is an innocent vision set in my passionate youth. I originally thought that I would keep it in my heart and never take it out. But when you, Steve Rogers, appeared again, I knew that my ideal could be realized. I have such a goal. Rogers took a deep breath. I'm only the director of the SHIEAR and this department is an international organization. It may not be able to help you, Mr. Donald. No. Donald shook his head. This is just your starting point, not your end, Captain. Our world is beginning to be in chaos, and the people now need a real Lion King to lead us to explore the way forward. Not those fat politicians, but a real leader. A leader who can break through the darkness and illuminate the way forward. Lead us to find glory and pursue our dreams. Donald said excitedly, no one is more suitable than you, Captain Rogers. I'll tell you the truth. The current president's term will end this year. The election has begun to build momentum, but everyone is waiting and watching. Because everyone is afraid that a heavyweight figure will jump down and disrupt the situation at this time. I think you should understand who they are waiting for. Donald looked at Rogers, and the meaning was self-evident. Captain Rogers was silent and did not say anything. Donald stared into Rogers' eyes. The world needs heroes more than ever. This is an era of heroes. Our country also needs an outstanding leader more than ever. I'll be frank. If you believe in me, Captain Rogers, and you are willing to do more for the world, then please leave these trivial matters to me. I know very well how the White House regime changes. We need you, and the people need you, President Steve Rogers. Donald finally said what he was thinking. Captain Rogers subconsciously squeezed the silver cross on his chest. It was given to Rogers by Peggy Carter before she died. Rogers held it gently. Peggy, this time I will set sail again with your glory and dreams. I don't know how many difficulties and obstacles there are ahead, whether it is a sunny road or an abyss. Please bless me, my dearest love. For our glory and dreams, P.S., please vote. This chapter took a long time to write. Please vote. What did chapter 793 say? New Zealand, Stark Technology Island. The engineering mechas are still busy building various facilities. Captain Rogers strolled on the breakwater, looking at the blue water. He was still a little hesitant. Seriously, do I really want to run for the U.S. presidency? Rogers turned and asked the two people following him. Nightwalker Lee G and Iron Man Tony Stark. Actually, I think you're a good president of the United States. Tony said. You're more upright than most people. And you're smooth? Tony said seriously. Lee G nodded, and at the same time agreed, And you're smooth enough, you have means, and you're black-bellied. A person with ideals and means, upright and smooth, noble and black-bellied, upright and treacherous at the same time. To be honest, Captain, I really can't think of any reason not to elect you as president. Captain Rogers, hey. He was full of black lines, and he couldn't figure out whether Lee Ji was praising him or belittling him. Especially the fact that Nightwalker and Iron Man sang the same tune made him feel that his choice might be a bit wrong. Well, it looks like I might have to ask Donald to withdraw from this election. Captain Rogers said this half seriously. No, don't do that. Lee Ji heard Captain Rogers say this, and he immediately said that he was joking just now. Actually, I was just praising you, Captain. I'm serious. Actually, I think there is a line in a Chinese movie that is very correct. Being an honest official is more treacherous than being a corrupt official. If an honest official is not as treacherous as a corrupt official, what can he use to fight against corrupt officials? In fact, I think this line is very suitable for you. Lee Ji looked at Captain Rogers very seriously and said. Tony Stark nodded on the side. In fact, for Tony, if Captain Rogers became the President of the United States, it would be good for him, both in public and in private. Captain Rogers could only smile at what Lee Ji said. Actually, this line is particularly suitable for you. You are probably the least heroic hero I have ever seen. Captain Rogers couldn't find the right words to describe Lee Ji. Look at what you have done. In fact, you arranged for Donald and I to meet, and you were planning something with Professor Charles in Hong Kong. Who are you going to dig a big hole for now? Lee Ji shrugged non-committally. Aha, birds of a feather flock together. In fact, we are all the same in the Illuminati. No, absolutely not. Tony Stark suddenly jumped out and denied. At least he is different from the almost 300-pound lightning fat man in the organization. Please don't take me with you if you think you are very similar to that lightning fat man. Tony Stark seemed to make sense. Lee Ji felt that he had given the wrong example. Let's get this one out of the way. Okay, let's get back to the point, Captain. You know what happened in Hong Kong? About the Lan Kuei Fong incident. Lee Ji told Captain Rogers and Tony Stark everything that happened in Hong Kong, including his thoughts and a series of things such as the recently recruited hired hero, Rock Slayer Damon. Tony stroked his beard, so it was Hydra who did this again. The upright Captain Rogers rubbed his temple. He suddenly felt a little inexplicable sympathy for Schmidt, his old rival with whom he had fought for decades. Could it be the legendary mutual sympathy between fateful opponents? The captain hoped that it was his own illusion. Lee Ji ignored the two people's thoughts and said very seriously, yes, it was Hydra who did it. There is almost a 70% to 80% certainty. They just want to use Magneto to provoke conflicts. Tony opened his mouth and finally closed it again. His smile was a little weird, a little mocking, a little sympathetic, but also seemed to be a little bit of holding back. This made his expression very strange. Captain Rogers sighed in a low voice. Schmidt seems to be always one step behind. His various plans are obviously good. If they are really implemented smoothly, we will have to pay a huge price. But he is always one step behind. Just like the matter of Dr. Banner and the matter of Magneto this time. He is always one step behind. Lee Ji smiled. Who cares? Anyway, I don't know why Schmidt is always one step behind. Captain Rogers and Tony stared at Lee Ji, and neither of them spoke. But since he is late, we might as well let him be later. This is a good opportunity to completely eliminate Hydra. In fact, I now think it is time for Hydra to leave the stage. They are no longer of much use. Lee Ji said seriously. In the past, I felt that they were needed because I felt that there was always a place in the world that attracted hatred and firepower. Now I think they have begun to lose their effectiveness. The problems we face in the future are no longer Hydra can attract hatred and divert firepower. It is time for them to leave the stage of history. A man with many pots said cruelly. Even Tony and Rogers sympathized with Hydra. We have begun to sanction them economically, and have done a good job. Now it's time for us to eliminate them militarily. Hydra has successfully angered Dr. Banner, Magneto, and Dr. Doom, because the Chilean attack caused Strange to be discovered, and Doom had a competitor. And the fat man Flash, who was eating and drinking lavishly in my house, has been very idle recently. Lee Ji pointed his finger into the distance. We can form a powerful firepower assault team, and this battle will completely destroy Hydra. What I need now is to prepare the preset conditions for Demon, the word spirit, so that he can succeed when he activates his ability. In this way, our actions will be like hitting a red buff, invincible. Li Ji said to Captain Rogers, "Captain, I think I need you to communicate with the people of the SHIE Bureau officially. This time we need cooperation from many parties to stage a false Sarajevo incident." "Sarajevo? Who do you want to be Duke Fernandi? Who will be Princip?" Tony asked with a frown. Li Ji smiled. "This is a play. A play to deceive others. There's only one audience, and that is Red Skull Schmidt, whose death and BJ now will cause sudden chaos in the world, or even trigger a war." Captain Rogers and Tony looked at each other, and they suddenly realized it in their hearts. Li Ji carefully told Tony and Captain Rogers some details of his thoughts. Then the three of them discussed with each other to fill in the gaps. After finalizing the details, Li Ji was ready to go back to Hong Kong first, but Captain Rogers stopped Li Ji. "What exactly do you want that word spirit called diamond to say?" Li Ji smiled before pushing the food cart to open the space door. "May there be no more Hydra in the world." Chapter 794, Beauty Trap? New York. Li Qianhong feels that her life is so good and happy now. Li Qianhong's ancestral home is in northeast China. Working in the SWORD in the United States is much happier than working in the SMORD. Here, there is no nagging weather, which is a close friend, and the network cable will not be cut off after 11 o'clock at night when there is no mission, and the wire will be cut to force the lights to go out and sleep. You don't have to watch director Zhang Xian of the SMORD every day, a man in his 40s, with a serious face, usually unsmiling and slightly triangular eyes, working. Li Qianhong once heard of such a theory, that is, what kind of person you will become in the future if you work and live with him for a long time. Thinking about the appearance of director Zhang Xian, Li Qianhong shuddered. Although director Zhang Xian is a good leader, it would be better if your leader can be more handsome besides being good. For example, director Steve Rogers is stylish. He has the ability of a superhero and the charm of a super male model. Li Qianhong has long been a fan of director Rogers. In fact, she sneaked into the Captain America, Captain Earth support group organized by Kelson, the insurance salesman of S.H.I.E.L.D., as a staff member of SWORD. Does this count as infiltrating the core of the corrupt capitalism? Working behind the enemy's lines? Li Qianhong thought after joining the S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents Club. In the war years, people like me who work behind the enemy's lines should be awarded a medal weighing 1 ton to commend my outstanding contribution. If Li Qianhong had any special contribution, it would probably be that she taught a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, including Kelson, to play King of Glory. Well, because of their work, most of the agents don't have the whole time to play a serious game. For example, they can't play games that require time, such as Horizon, Dawn and Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. They can only play some mobile games in their scattered fragmented time. Before, they played the most games like Clash of Clans. And because of Li Qianhong's joining, she brought a King of Glory with Chinese characteristics to the United States. I am promoting Chinese culture, deepening the people-to-people exchanges between the two countries, and deepening the friendship between the two sides, right? Li Qianhong put her hands on her hips, posing like a cool model at the Milan Fashion Week. Anyway, no one here cuts off your internet, cuts off your electricity, and there is no director Zhang who always has a cold face. The only person who can be regarded as supervising her is Shangqi. But Shangqi is a good person to talk to, and he pampers Li Qianhong like a brother. And Shangqi himself has a junior brother in SHIELD, the guy called the weakest Iron Fist in history. They often exchange martial arts, so Shangqi can control Li Qianhong every day. By the way, because she helped Tony Stark once at the Stark Industrial Expo, Li Qianhong got some small privileges. For example, she has more shares when buying Dawn Magic Water and Dawn 101. Now she is doing well in cross-border purchasing for her colleagues in the Chinese SHIELD. With a lot of small money, Li Qianhong feels that she doesn't know how to spend it. Now Li Qianhong dares to spend money on mobile games, and has experienced the pleasure of being a big spender. Anyway, as long as she completes her daily tasks steadily, who cares about her? The workplace culture in China and the United States is completely different, especially in some functional departments. For example, now, Li Qianhong is staying up late to play King of Glory online with the Swordmaster in Hong Kong. While playing, she is also typing and chatting on the mobile phone communication software, talking about recent events and exchanging some information. Lee Kyan-hoon, I heard from people in the bureau that Captain Rogers might participate in the next U.S. election. If he becomes the President of the United States, who will be the leader of SWRD? Swordmaster, of course he has to be elected. Captain Rogers was elected because of his integrity and neutral political orientation. If he becomes the President of the United States, this point will disappear. Do Lee Kyan-hoon, but no one can be more upright than Captain Rogers. Agre via cute, he is a true internationalist fighter. Swordmaster, there is nothing we can do about it. Have you become his crazy fan now? Lee Kyan-hoon, it's so hard to find a handsome and stylish leader. By the way, has China really established formal diplomatic relations with a mutant country of Tuvalu? Greek letter Omega, Swordmaster, yes. It's 100% true. The witch sister and director Zhang are both pushing this matter. In fact, I met Magneto in Hong Kong. You know what happened in Hong Kong? Magneto met with us. And he talked to the witch sister for a long time and drove me out. Swordmaster, in the end, it seems that Magneto's attitude is also an important consideration for us to formally establish diplomatic relations with Tuvalu and sign a strategic cooperation agreement. On behalf of the mutant brothers, Magneto expressed that he will fully support Tuvalu's actions in the future. Magneto may be whitewashed, degree, Lee Kyan-hoon, up left arrow, Greek letter Omega, up right arrow. I am a mutant and I am proud. In fact, I admired Magneto very much when I was rebellious. I think he is very handsome, although the methods he used are questionable. But he is fighting for the rights of people like us. In the United States, I deeply felt the inconvenience of mutant life. When I went to the National Library of the United States, the security check showed that I was a mutant, but they didn't let me in. I almost fought with them. Juggernaut, by the way, how about what I told you last time? Let's find a way to set up an official Weibo account for our SHIELD. Just like those American superheroes. Look at Captain Rogers, he posted a Weibo about eating a hamburger and it got tens of millions of reposts. We also need to improve the image of our local Chinese superheroes. Greek letter Omega, Lee Kyan-hoon, actually, I'm doing it. I asked Carlson from SHIELD to help. He's a good comrade of SHIELD, and he also runs a non-profit comic website privately, providing services to new cartoonists. Note, Chun-Bai's fan comics are serialized on this website, so she was immediately arrested for drawing Captain America's fan comics, but the others were fine. Lee Kyan-hoon, I've even thought of a name, let's call it, Special Operations Team of SHIELD. Agre via cute, Juggernaut, so embarrassing, but I like it. We can also set up an acting director to replace Director Zhang's coffin face. I have a suggestion, how about we use, Meowzilla? Degree, Lee Kyan-hoon, good idea. Oh, in this way, Lee Kyan-hoon chatted with his sword saint girl all night without realizing it. They discussed how to enhance the image of Chinese local superheroes, because they knew clearly that the Central Propaganda Department was unreliable. People still have to rely on themselves. When Lee Kyan-hoon yawned and went to the restaurant on the first floor of the dormitory to get a cup of black coffee to refresh herself, she suddenly saw a mighty figure standing in the restaurant drinking coffee. Oh my god. It's Captain Rogers. Damn it, have I taken care of my hair? It seems that I haven't put on makeup yet. I must have dark circles under my eyes from staying up late. I'm going to die. Lee Kyan-hoon suddenly felt that staying up late was a very stupid decision. She planned to leave here first, but it was obvious that Captain Rogers had already seen her. Rogers greeted from a distance, Lee, good morning. A charming smile, with 8 teeth showing in a standard way. Lee Kyan-hoon felt that she should dress up before going out, as she felt a little silly now. Well, actually, Lee Kyan-hoon was not the only one who felt silly. In fact, Captain Rogers himself felt that he was silly. Although he needed to contact the mutants in the SHIE through Lee Kyan-hoon to coordinate a big show. But Rogers felt that it was stupid for him to smile like this. Well, maybe this is called a beauty trap? How stupid. Rogers wailed. Chapter 795. Sorry, being handsome really allows you to do whatever you want. Captain Rogers is a very attractive man. He almost satisfies all women's fantasies about men, including a muscular body and a handsome face. The upturned corners of his mouth when smiling give him a hint of playfulness. Moreover, he is a responsible, capable, An infatuated man, as can be seen from the Peggy Carter incident. To be honest, as a global idol, Steve Rogers had countless fans 70 years ago. Today, more than 70 years later, he is still as charming as ever. Countless fans fall under his boots. There are many people who read his Weibo every day. At the same time, as the face value and male hormone of the Illuminati, Rogers really has to take action in some things. When Lee Ji and Rogers proposed his idea, they did not elaborate on the specific considerations. For example, Rogers' appearance can achieve extraordinary results when communicating with the opposite sex. This kind of thing is tacitly understood. Lee Ji can't praise Rogers for his handsomeness in front of him. If you talk like this, it is easy to be understood as a gay in the American cultural atmosphere. Lee Ji has a girlfriend now. He doesn't want any misunderstanding. Lee Ji thinks Captain Rogers should know the answer himself. For example, why is Captain Rogers' burger bigger than others when they go out to buy burgers together, and there are several more slices of cheese? This should not be just because he is a hero. Looking at the silly smile of the waitress who winked at him at the counter, you can understand a lot of things. So it is the best choice to let Captain Rogers communicate with Lee Kyan-hoon. First, he is now Lee Kyan-hoon's leader, and second, it is because Rogers is handsome. For example, now, although Captain Rogers is a little wailing in his heart, but he still greets Lee Kyan-hoon with a charming smile on his face. "Good morning, Lee. Oh my god, I didn't put on makeup and stayed up late. I must be ugly now." Lee Kyan-hoon felt that her face was a little hot, and she was not sure if she was blushing now. If she blushed, it must be because of shame. Because she is a little too unkempt now, she feels very embarrassed to appear in front of her idol in this image. Lee Kyan-hoon joins Captain Earth fan club. "Good morning, Captain." Lee Kyan-hoon forced a smile and responded to Rogers, I just came to get a cup of coffee. I'll leave after I'm done." "Oh, okay." Rogers made way for the coffee machine. Wow, Lee Kyan-hoon was a little absent-minded and used the cup to catch the coffee. Fortunately, the amount of coffee the coffee machine dispenses each time is fixed, otherwise she would be burned by her absent-minded state. Captain Rogers did not leave here, which made Lee Kyan-hoon a little embarrassed. But she didn't know that Captain Rogers came just for her. Rogers leaned against the table with coffee in his hand. "Lee, are you free? I want to talk to you about something. If you're not busy, we can talk while eating." Oh my god, so direct. Is this a date with me? Lee Kyan-hoon felt her heartbeat speed up. Rogers saw Lee Kyan-hoon's slightly red earlobes, and he sighed inwardly. This thing really shouldn't be done by myself. Why do I feel like I'm going to become a big villain who deceives little girls? Lee Kyan-hoon is only 22 years old, right? There was basically no one in the restaurant at 6 in the morning, except for the chef who provided service. Captain Rogers had a very healthy breakfast of bacon, eggs, arugula and dragon fruit, plus whole wheat bread and half-fat milk. In comparison, Lee Kyan-hoon's breakfast was a bit too rich. Today was Lee Kyan-hoon's day off, so she stayed up all night last night and played several mobile game activities in a row. Now she hasn't eaten for more than 10 hours. Smelling the aroma of food, she subconsciously took a lot of things and put them on her plate. For example, big meat buns. 3 shred spring rolls with porridge are just right, take it away. Egg-filled pancakes and barbecued pork chicken, this is high-quality protein for breakfast, take it away. There is also a big bowl of rice porridge and fried noodles with pickles. This is an indispensable staple food, and you must have 2 bites. There are people from all over the world in the Xianjian Bureau, so the kitchen provides a variety of food. But after bringing the plate, Lee Kyan-hoon felt a little regretful. Was I a little too unrestrained when I chose the dishes just now? Because Captain Rogers' breakfast only fits on a shallow plate, while his own breakfast filled a whole tray, and it was almost overflowing. Lee Kyan-hoon sat opposite Captain Rogers, eating with her head down. She didn't know how to say anything. This made Rogers feel even more guilty. I knew things would get out of hand. In order to prevent this embarrassment from continuing, Rogers spoke up. "Lee, actually I have something to talk to you about today." Lee Kyan-hoon whispered, Rogers supported his forehead. "It's about the mutants in the SHIE. I know you were a standing member of the mutant committee in the SHIE. Lee Kyan-hoon said calmly, Rogers continued to support his forehead. "I want to ask what you think about mutants establishing a country." Lee Kyan-hoon said loudly, Rogers admired the little girl in front of him a little bit. She used the same pronunciation to perfection. Well, it seems that I thought too much? Lee Kyan-hoon felt that something in her heart was shattered. But Director Rogers was looking for her to talk about serious matters, so she still needed to answer well. So Lee Kyan-hoon cheered up. In fact, I just talked about these issues with the Swordmaster not long ago. In fact, I support this matter. Most mutant agents in the SHIE, including the Weather Witch, are positive about mutants establishing a country. Especially when I heard that Magneto would also support this matter. If he could whitewash his mutant brothers, it would be a good thing for the world. Lee Kyan-hoon thought of the things he had just talked about with his Swordmaster. There are many people in the SHIE who sympathize with the plight of mutants, and to be frank, if the mutant policies of other countries continue, it is actually very risky for the world. So this matter is worth promoting for us. In this regard, Director Zhang of the SHIE actually wants to get your support, Director Rogers. He hopes that the SHIE will at least take a neutral position in this matter. Lee Kyan-hoon silently lit the wax for the Masons and thanked them for mixing the concrete. Rogers nodded, and he looked at Lee Kyan-hoon and said, "Actually, due to the special nature of my identity, it is not convenient for me to show obvious political inclinations at this time, because once I do so, it may not make things better. You know, politics is cruel." Lee Kyan-hoon understood the meaning of this very well, which is why when she was chatting with the Sword Saint just now, the Sword Saint asked her to mention Zhang Xian's ideas to Director Rogers when she was free. Because some things can be done, but they cannot be said, and everyone has a tacit understanding. Captain Rogers continued to say to Lee Kyan-hoon, "There are some things I cannot communicate directly with the Shenmue Bureau, or I can't say it openly. But there are some things I must explain, at least you need to explain it to the Shenmue Bureau." Lee Kyan-hoon put down his chopsticks and sat upright. A not very accurate news, someone wants to disrupt the political changes in Tuvalu this time. Someone plans to create a new century version of the Sarajevo incident. Captain Rogers said in a serious tone. They intend to completely stir up the hatred of ordinary people who are mutants, and even cause a huge chaos. I can't be sure of the accuracy of this matter. So I can't send any official documents and explanations to the SHIE. Because if I send a formal document about this matter, it will be a diplomatic incident. I think you understand what I mean. Rogers' inner thoughts, there is no evidence at all, why should I send any documents? This is just a preparation to lure a certain organization in. But because of Rogers' good image, plus the bonus of his fangirls, Lee Kyan-hoon didn't think there was any flaw in what Rogers just said. It's normal that an uncertain news may not be able to disclose its source. Even the SHIE will sound the alarm many times a year, and it turns out to be a false alarm in the end. But preparations must be made every time. It makes sense for Rogers to convey the information through himself. Rogers looked at Lee Kyan-hoon, "So I want you to do me a favor." Lee Kyan-hoon nodded. "What favor?" "Communicate with Zhang Xian, and find a way to convince those members of your bureau who sympathize with mutants, mainly mutant agents. We need to make a preparation, even if the possibility of danger is only 1 in 10,000. We even need to stage a big show." Rogers looked serious, and Lee Kyan-hoon nodded vigorously. Coming out of the restaurant, Rogers felt full of guilt. Is it true that he still hasn't practiced well enough? If Nightcrawler was here, he would probably sit there and finish all his breakfast without changing his expression or heartbeat. Maybe he would order another one if he was in a good mood? Rogers felt that someone in the Illuminati was really extraordinary. What he could do, Rogers, Tony Stark, or Charles and Hank, these people couldn't do. Of course, a certain Flash fatty couldn't do it either. As Rogers was walking through the restaurant and past a bathroom, he saw a familiar figure, Peggy Carter's niece and his current personal secretary, Sharon Carter, a beauty with blonde hair and beautiful blue eyes. She was carrying a laundry basket out of the bathroom, and greeted Captain Rogers after seeing him. "Good morning, Captain." "Morning." Rogers was a little absent-minded, but he saw something familiar in Sharon's laundry basket from the corner of his eye. "Is this my code and uniform?" Rogers looked at Sharon with some confusion. "Yes, good eyesight." Sharon smiled. "You left it in the office before, and I saw it was a little dirty, so I picked it up and washed it together. Now it's washed and dried. Since you're here, I don't think I need to take it to your room." Sharon handed the uniform and coat to Rogers, shook her hand and said goodbye to Rogers with a smile. Rogers walked into the bathroom with the clothes, and he felt that his inexplicable sense of guilt became even heavier. He looked at himself in the large mirror in the bathroom and gave a helpless smile. Maybe being handsome really allows you to do whatever you want? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 796, An Important Plan to Raise the Average Appearance. In this world, handsome people can do whatever they want. Li Ji said while drinking a milkshake, being handsome is not only for food, but also for doing all kinds of things that ugly people can't do. He drank the signature milkshake of a famous restaurant in Hong Kong, while talking about his own strange ideas. For example, when a handsome guy flirts with a beautiful woman, even if he fails, the result will not be too bad. Generally speaking, a handsome guy's flirting is called flirting, while an ugly guy's flirting is called harassment. Professor Charles and Magneto are almost immune to these remarks made by Li Ji from time to time. Only Damon was stunned. Handsome people have privileges, such as being more likely to be seen and noticed by others. There are so many people in the world, and it is difficult to seek attention. Because the more attention you get, the higher your value. Of course, the quality of this value depends on the individual. Li Ji seemed to be talking aimlessly about these irrelevant words. But Professor Charles and Magneto did not show any impatient expressions. Especially Magneto, he has never liked Nightwalker Li Ji very much. Because being noticed is something that people desire in this era, and it is a luxury. Countless people chase after the spotlight and try every means to increase their exposure. Even if it means becoming notorious. Because for some people, being unknown is more terrible than being notorious. Li Ji took a big sip of the milkshake that tasted like Oreo. It was a bit too sweet. It was very greasy after drinking too much. The standard of a Michelin one-star restaurant was just so-so. Of course, it could also be that the judge just happened to be a sweet tooth. Li Ji put down the milkshake. This is because of the age when appearance is the most important thing in consumption. Although the fact that ugly people have no human rights is not a public topic, it does exist in reality, regardless of men or women. Damon suddenly interrupted at this time. So many stores here are playing the song Ugly because it fits the characteristics of this era. It seems a bit off topic. Li Ji waved his hand and told Damon to shut up first. Okay, I think we should get back to the point. These are my prefaces. Li Ji looked at Magneto and said, Red Skull is just an ugly freak. Ugly freaks have no human rights and are not qualified to do whatever they want. He will be destroyed sooner or later, which is not surprising at all. You will also be reunited with your children, Old Wan. Old Wan. Max is not very used to this Chinese-style address. Don't mind, it's a respectful title. Li Ji said seriously, let's continue talking about what just happened. The destruction of Hydra is the top priority of this operation. Captain Rogers has sent a message that the SHIE has been dealt with. The SHIE, including the director and the mutant agents in the Bureau, still have a good impression of Tuvalu. However, this good impression must be based on the premise that this is a peaceful and stable regime. What they want to see is the one home promised by Katie. Li Ji said this to Max. His meaning is very clear. If you want Tuvalu to really get on the right track, then the Brotherhood of Mutants needs to abide by the oath and turn from darkness to light. Magneto knew this very well, so he nodded. I will make everyone stop. If anyone still likes to live the same life, I will deal with them. Well, Li Ji didn't want to care about how Magneto dealt with those who didn't listen. Li Ji turned to look at Charles, but this is not enough, Professor. We all know what Magneto Marx did. The fake drugs he made are circulating in the market to the point where it is difficult to recover them. Even if they are discontinued now, the fake drugs that have been leaked before are enough to turn tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of people into mutants. Professor Charles nodded. This is indeed troublesome. Although most people are still in the latent stage, the possibility of a large-scale outbreak is getting higher and higher. Although Marx repeatedly assured that the fake drugs he made are non-toxic and harmless, and have no side effects, it can even cure diseases and strengthen the body. But Li Ji still has reservations about these words. Another thing is the matter of the Inhumans. Nick Fury has sent a message that Black Bolt has agreed to meet. Li Ji also needs to hurry up to meet him. The total annihilation of Hydra may require the arrest of several other leaders of the Illuminati. These are all things that need to be solved. How to solve the large-scale awakening of mutants, although most of these dominant transformations will not awaken superpowers. But can ordinary people accept it? Although there is no danger for the time being, what about later? You know, genetically modified food is basically regarded as an unhealthy or even devilish food simply because it cannot be proved that it is harmless. Then wouldn't humans care more about the mutations that happen to themselves? So thanks to Mr. Magneto's unnecessary actions, it has caused us to do more things now. Li Ji sighed. Old Juan rarely said a word, nor did he refute. He just snorted from his nose. As I said before, Professor, this is an era of consumer beauty. Take a look at the financial report of Shuguang Group. The sales of Shuguang Magic Water and Shuguang 101 have reached a sky-high level. As long as they are produced, they will be absorbed by the market. In addition to removing scars, Shuguang Magic Water can also increase skin activity. If Shuguang Magic Water is used continuously for a long time, it can really make the skin younger. Having the skin of a 25-year-old at the age of 50 is no longer an advertising slogan. It is more effective and direct than sheep placenta. Men and women are crazy. The black market price of Shuguang Magic Water has soared. Many women can buy this stuff and go bankrupt. It is even more terrible than drugs. Li Ji said the truth. Although Shuguang Group has been increasing its production capacity, it has now reached a bottleneck. The market demand for Shuguang Group's two products has reached a hungry state. Especially the magic water that can increase skin activity and restore youth. Its sales scene has exceeded any cosmeceutical products you can think of. Now Tony Stark's most profitable business is no longer making technology equipment. Even the high-tech products like Arc Energy, which are related to the future of mankind, can't make as much money as selling skincare water. Now Tony Stark is already a veritable king of cosmeceuticals. Time magazine selected the top 10 figures of the year last year, and Tony and Captain Rogers tied for first place. Captain Rogers was because of his outstanding performance in the Battle of New York, interpreting the perfect image of a hero. The reason why Tony Stark was on the list is that he not only deceived women into sleeping with him, but also took all their money. The written text is not so straightforward, but the meaning is similar. So, I'm thinking about one thing. About how to make the most appropriate whitewashing for mutants, and it is acceptable to everyone. Let those who are forced to transform their genes feel that life after transformation is not bad. Li Ji took out a yellowed magazine from behind him. From the cover of the magazine, it can be seen that it is very old, at least a product of the 1990s. Damon recognized the Chinese characters on it. This is a magazine called Science Fiction World. Li Ji held the magazine and said to Charles and Magneto, "This is a magazine I came across by chance at a used bookstall. There was an article in it that really attracted me because its author is Mr. Liu Cixin, whom I like very much. The title of this article is Angel Age. It basically talks about an African country that conducted genetic experiments on humans, which violated basic human morality. Their purpose in modifying humans is to enable citizens to eat grass roots, tree bark, and even soil. This method is used to alleviate the problem of food shortage and hunger in Africa. In fact, this matter is very similar to the situation in countries like Nebarenia. Nebarenia mentioned by Li Ji was the African country that first came into contact with Katie and others. Charles sighed. Yes, agriculture in Nebarenia has been completely destroyed by the European Union. The food crisis and the harsh land leasing policies of the big corporations have made the country and the people miserable. When Nebarenia's president Mahmoud found Katie, he even asked you if Walla's citizens could be transformed into mutants who can eat grass. Because at least there are plenty of wild grasses in their country. Science fiction is actually an extension and exploration of the future of mankind. Some of the predictions have even become reality. Just like Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. When he was describing the Nautilus, humans had not yet developed submarines. Magneto also expressed his opinion. Li Ji nodded. Yes, so this article gave me an inspiration. There is such a plot in it. That African country not only transformed people who can eat grass, but also transformed a group of angels. Both for fighting and for compromise. Humans may not be able to accept becoming monsters that eat grass roots and soil, but they will not refuse to become angels. Li Ji said in a steady tone. Combining the actual situation of the Shuguang Group and the consumption concepts of our time. Maybe not everyone expects to have some mutant abilities, and not everyone thinks it's cool. But I think no one can refuse to become more handsome or more beautiful. Li Ji looked at Charles and Magneto and said seriously, "It sounds a bit ridiculous. But I think we need to study how to improve the average appearance of humans." Charles and Magneto looked at each other, and it took them a long time to recover. Damon was already looking at Li Ji in amazement. Is the Nightwalker's brain circuit really different from that of ordinary people? P.S. Asking for votes. Chapter 797 X Beautiful Plan. Gentlemen, I'm not kidding. This is a real situation. Being handsome or beautiful is a very important resource. Li Ji said something that seemed a little funny in a serious tone. In this world, people spare no effort and energy to pursue a better self. Dawn 101 and Dawn Magic Water can attract countless people just to repair hair loss and repair skin. The profit is even higher than drug trafficking. We can even say that we are robbing money openly. And all the people who are robbed are willing to give the money with both hands and are grateful. Li Ji said the truth. Dawn 101 or Dawn Magic Water. These two cosmeceuticals have really profoundly changed the lives of many people. They cured some of their physical defects and made their lives better. Many people even think that the significance of these two cosmeceuticals is even higher than new energy and super high-speed rail. Because those things are a bit too high-end for ordinary people, but these two products are really changing everyone's lives. Charles and Magneto remained silent. They were still thinking about the specific approach to the slogan that Li Ji had just proposed, which was to raise the average appearance of the Earthlings. Damon couldn't close his mouth. He had already vaguely guessed some of Li Ji's ideas, but he hadn't fully grasped them. However, just the small details he had grasped made him feel that Nightcrawler's brain-thinking circuit was different from that of ordinary people. He wanted to use a completely subversive method to solve the long-standing problem of mutants. And this method was indeed something that no mutant leader had ever considered. Whether it was Charles, Magneto, or the younger generation of Katie. Li Ji continued to talk about the details. From these things, it is not difficult to see that the world is eager for beauty. Look at South Korea and Asia. The medical beauty industry can even become one of the pillar industries of this country. Countless Chinese people travel thousands of miles to this place to get a surgery, just to make themselves beautiful. Even though many people have had medical accidents, or even been refused to leave the country by customs, there are still countless people going to South Korea to give money. They actually take all kinds of risks because of language barriers, unfamiliarity with a place, etc. They may spend a huge price and take the risk of surgery, but in the end they only find an unlicensed medical beauty salon. As a result, a terrible medical beauty accident was made. What Li Ji said is true. In fact, these things are not unique to China. There are such plastic surgery maniacs everywhere in the world, and they are crazy about operating on their bodies. In order to pursue beauty, they are willing to do all kinds of crazy things, even if the risks are great, they are willing to try. So, as I said before, we have to find a way to raise the average appearance of the Earth. I think you know what I mean. Li Ji pointed at Magneto. Your fake medicine has spread all over the world. At least tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of people have been infected. This group of people is the crisis of this incident, but also the turning point. Your original plan to turn the world into mutants was crazy and feasible. If you were really allowed to do it, you might have succeeded. But everything has two sides. Some people may have to accept it, but some people will have a rebellious mentality. Li Ji sat back on the sofa and crossed his fingers. When a small fraction is based on a population base of 100 million, the damage it causes can be devastating. We need to reduce this destructiveness to a minimum level. Let everyone think, oh, becoming a mutant may not be so bad. Li Ji said seriously, and the two old friends listened carefully. Magneto interrupted, so your idea is to research something to make those transformed mutants handsome or beautiful. Li Ji shook his finger. No, that's too passive. It should be said another way. If you want to become more handsome or beautiful, the price is to transform into mutant genes. Use another way, no matter what means you use. Research drugs or something. I think there are so many mutants, and there are all kinds of strange mutant abilities. Magneto, you are the one who knows about the X-weapon plan. Professor Charles, you also sent students to destroy the US X-weapon plan before, right? Both of them nodded. Li Ji continued, take a look at the X-weapon plan. They want to combine all kinds of powerful mutant abilities to create a terrible humanoid weapon. Make a destroyer that can destroy the world or something. But we know that the more powerful the mutant ability, the more difficult it is to integrate, and the more likely it is to get into trouble. The two continue to nod. But let's change our way of thinking. Li Ji stood up and paced in the room, his tone becoming more and more crazy. The X-weapon plan is difficult to achieve, but what about the X-beauty plan? Charles, Magneto, and Damon spoke at the same time. What is the X-beauty plan? Li Ji said in an almost dreamy voice with a beautiful, seductive and profound tone, the X-beauty plan. I think it can also be called the human beauty completion plan. You know, how a person looks is determined by genes. For example, if you are short, the biggest reason besides the imbalance of acquired nutritional intake is the upper limit of your innate genes. Your upper limit can only grow this high. For example, your facial features are not three-dimensional enough. This is also determined by genetic genes. Eye color, skin color, hair color, etc. are all determined by genes. Li Ji's voice became louder and louder, and the more he spoke, the clearer his thoughts became. In addition to external surgery, can we achieve all this through fine-tuning of genes? Some people would break their legs just to grow a little taller, and undergo cruel stretching and height-enhancing surgeries, just to grow 2 or 3 centimeters taller. There are also those who dye their hair frequently, and they also know that long-term dyeing is bad for the body. There are many other things, and I don't need to give examples one by one. Li Ji, mutants have all kinds of abilities. It seems that some people's ability is to grow taller. Magneto nodded. Yes, there is such a mutant in China. His last name seems to be Yao, and he is currently a government official. Li Ji clapped his hands. Yes, that's what I said. We can think of a way to make this ability more controllable and more practical. Just like the Dawn 101 and magic water we made with Logan's genes. I think the X-beauty plan needs to be improved. We can gather mutants with such abilities, such as those who can grow taller, those who can eat fried food without getting acne, and those who can eat anything without getting fat. We can even find mutants whose abilities are to get enough rest after a short sleep, and compress a person's sleep to 4 hours a day to satisfy the body's recovery. Believe me, what I said is much more promising than that damn X-weapon plan. We can find a way to make something similar to asthma spray. Let people gain a certain mutant ability for a short time. Everything Li Ji said has completely shocked Magneto and Charles. Damon is thinking about what abilities he needs to buy if this drug is on the market. I wonder if there is a mutant ability to drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk? This ability seems pretty good. For example, you are going to attend a barbecue party in the evening, and you and a dozen friends have prepared hundreds of kilograms of barbecue? You need a bottle of, eat as much as you want without getting fat spray. Eat to your heart's content. Don't worry about the 3 highs in body fat. Or you are going to snorkel in the Maldives? Get a bottle of 30-minute underwater free breathing spray. You can feel as free as a mermaid. Li Ji expressed his thoughts in a forward-looking way. There are also those who use mutant abilities to repair some defects of their own bodies that are not considered defects, such as being short, having a sausage mouth, squinting eyes, etc. Many times, people do not need to pursue any earth-shattering abilities. And the proliferation of powerful X-mutant abilities is not a good thing for the world. But everything I just said is actually related to the daily life of human beings and makes up for some inconveniences in our lives. Mutants can only cause destruction? Or be heroes? Maybe, but the world should be far more than that. Let's use our ideas to change the world. How about it? Li Ji walked to the side of Magneto and Charles and patted the 2 old men on the shoulders. Charles and Magneto have not closed their mouths since Li Ji told them the details of his thinking. If Katie wants to achieve peaceful coexistence between mutants and ordinary people by establishing a mutant country, this is still a possibility that can be imagined and speculated. Then the plan that Li Ji just proposed is subversive to the two. This idea that jumps out of line is absurd and ridiculous. But if it is really implemented, Magneto calculated that it is very feasible. Who can resist these temptations? Some people don't care whether they can control fire or ice, but many people care about eating too much at night and gaining 2 pounds of weight tomorrow. Compared with the aborted X-weapon plan, the X-beauty plan is a truly cross-era idea. Perhaps scholars in anthropology and social sciences need to divide the entire human history into 2 parts from today. Li Ji patted the 2 men on the shoulders. This is just an idea, and you are still needed to implement it. Professor, Magneto and Dr. Hank, who is far away on Venus. I think you need to find a way to study those sprays. Tuvalu and the Brotherhood of Mutants are also needed to find the mutants with the mutant abilities I just mentioned. This is actually a very tedious and troublesome task. But I think it's worth it for you to do all this. Charles looked at Li Ji, shook his head and said in an incredible tone, "How did you think of this?" Li Ji smiled and said, "Read more books and newspapers, eat less snacks and sleep more. Humans cannot accept themselves becoming monsters, but they will not refuse to become angels. Yes, throw the ridiculous X-weapon plan aside. Who the hell wants to become a monster? Exclamation mark. Wouldn't it be better to eat and drink without gaining weight? Damon likes the X-beauty plan. PS, please vote and subscribe." Chapter 798, Don't Turn on the Light, Ugly Freak, in this age of beauty and appearance being justice. BJ, a special diplomatic guest house. The core members of the Tuvalu delegation all live here, and these core members have gathered in Katie's suite. As the president of Tuvalu's mutants, Katie received them according to the highest standards. A spacious suite with 15 rooms, which can accommodate at least 30 members and also has a conference room. King Remy has checked the security of the entire room to ensure that there is no wiretapping of this room. And Katie has also greeted the Shield, saying that she will meet with Professor Charles tonight. Captain Rogers also passed a message to the Shield through Lee Kyan-hoon before, indicating that someone may now do something wrong to the mutant delegation. So the Shield is now in a kind of external and internal protection measures for the Tuvalu diplomatic delegation. However, Professor Charles is coming to teach his students face-to-face, and only Zhang Xian and the Weather Witch know about this. After all, a big drama that may cause the Sarajevo tragedy still needs a mutant spiritual leader to lead these students. In short, both sides maintain a tacit understanding. Zhang Xian kept his mouth shut about this matter, and other people in BJ City did not know that Professor Charles had arrived in BJ. After all, the fewer people who know about some things, the better. Zhang Xian understood what it meant to be self-determined. However, what he did not know was that in addition to Professor Charles, there were also Dr. Hank, Nightwalker, and Magneto, a global dangerous man, who came to BJ secretly this time. When Li Ji pushed the food cart to send several people to the BJ building, when the mutants saw Magneto, they could not help but let out a low exclamation. Although it had been communicated before, indicating that Magneto had abandoned the dark and turned to the light and was on their side, there were still many people who thought Magneto was a little scary. Fortunately, Magneto did not care about all this. He just snorted coldly, and then looked at the group of young mutants arrogantly. It seemed that he was in a bad mood. In fact, this time, Nightwalker Li Ji and others came here not only for the director of the Tuvalu drama, but also for a more important thing. That is the whitewashing plan for mutants, which was Li Ji's previous wild and unrestrained, X-beauty plan. In fact, Li Ji did not propose this, X-beauty project, on a whim. Ever since his father, Lien, was transformed into a mutant because of Magneto's fake medicine, Li Ji began to think about how to deal with this matter. He didn't want his father to be discriminated against because of his mutant identity in the future. Well, it must be said that Li Ji still has a lot of selfishness. What he wants most is to save his family and then save the world. And there is actually a prerequisite for the X-beauty project. It is necessary to use a certain method to achieve everything that Li Ji said, rather than just a concept. This operable possibility comes from Professor Charles' most special student, the little naughty Anna Marie. She is a special mutant because she can absorb various energies for her own use. The first characteristic is to absorb the vitality of others. This ability is very scary, and a slight physical contact can kill a person. At that time, Anna had a more terrible nickname. She was called Rakshasa. If it weren't for Logan saving her in the wild and bringing her to the mutant school by mistake, maybe Rakshasa would have gone astray. Because this ability is too easy to make people lose control. Until the mutant school, Professor Charles and Dr. Hank repeatedly studied Anna's mutant ability. The final result was that she did not absorb the vitality of others. Instead, she could absorb all forms of energy, ability, and then convert it in her body and even become her own ability. After long-term training, Anna can control what she absorbs. Perhaps her ability is more appropriately called deprivation and fusion. In the mutant school, Anna tried to merge the abilities of other mutants. Although she herself does not have any outstanding abilities, she can merge. For example, the professor tried to let Anna merge as many abilities as possible. So in an experiment, Anna took Scott Cyclops, Colossus's steel body and tremendous strength, storms, weather control and free flight, flashing space jumps, etc. And combined these abilities into one, she was almost invincible in that state. Almost as powerful as Helium Dragon in the comics. She is a perfect compatible body, and she can combine the powerful abilities of almost all mutants in one body. So Professor Charles has extremely high protection and confidentiality measures for Anna. Few people know what Anna's ability is, and many people still think she is a demon who absorbs the lives of others. However, Professor Charles prefers to call her Little Naughty. Because of her characteristics, the main research direction of the mutant handsome spray needs to start with her. So when Dr. Hank came here, he pulled Little Naughty aside, talked in a low voice for a while, and then let Blink take them away. Of course, the handsome spray series products used for promotion cannot really reach the level of Little Naughty. It is just necessary to study how to return the X gene to nothing, and then load the preset time-limited gene. Li Ji's X Beauty Plan proposed a new research direction for Dr. Hank, and he felt that he needed to work overtime. Not only the success of the product should be considered, but also the safety. Of course, Dr. Hank needs to do these, and Li Ji is not here just for this matter. He needs to consider more things, such as the pre-planning before whitewashing mutants and Tuvalu. Especially with the help of this upcoming drama to make a wonderful article. Professor Charles sat in a wheelchair on the left, and Magneto stood on the right. Li Ji stood in the center of the conference room, with a large blackboard behind him. Opposite him was a group of mutants from Tuvalu. Most of them were Charles' former students, including some teachers from Xavier's School for the Gifted. Some people here knew Nightwalker, and some didn't. But it didn't matter, because everyone knew Magneto and Professor X. With two big men in the mutant world endorsing Nightwalker, no one dared to speak up. Li Ji had not planned to come here to teach a group of young mutants this time, because this matter was supposed to be handed over to Professor Charles. But Professor Charles shook his head, and he said to Li Ji with a wry smile, "You should do these things. I really can't do your work. Professor Charles us, I'm still a little thin-skinned." So Li Ji had to come here to talk to everyone in Tuvalu about a very critical issue. Improve the overall image of Tuvaluan mutants. This is the top priority before us. Li Ji wrote the word, image, vigorously on the blackboard. Originally, Professor Charles should have discussed this with you. But for some reason, he entrusted me to do this teaching. So let's not waste time talking nonsense and get straight to the point. Tuvalu needs to form an organization similar to the X-Men, and this organization needs to promote the positive image of mutants, including fighting crime, terrorists, maintaining regional peace, and so on. Li Ji knocked on the blackboard. So, can someone tell me what you think the selection criteria for members of this organization are? Silok, ability Katie, overall view. Iceman, the ability to coordinate with other countries. Cyclops Scott, and the control of the situation and proper leadership. The mutants below all spoke freely, and what Nightcrawler just said was right. Tuvalu really needs a means to improve its image. Forming a superhero team. It looks like a good idea. Li Ji listened to the people below, but he didn't speak. He just recorded the content of these people's proposals on the blackboard. But he didn't give a positive attitude. After the people below could no longer come up with any new suggestions, Li Ji knocked on the blackboard. Okay, your suggestions are indeed good. But I want to say that you missed the most important point. Li Ji said that it was time to highlight the key points. Katie in the audience was a little confused. She knew Nightwalker and they were barely friends. It was Nightwalker, not Li Ji. She said, "What did you miss?" Handsome, beautiful, charming, cool, explosive, and other adjectives. Li Ji said loudly, "To sum it up simply, what this team and organization needs most is high appearance. Men must be handsome and women must be beautiful. Both heroes and idols. In this era where appearance is justice, we need to learn more about the ability to make rational use of the situation in modern society. Recruit a group of capable and handsome mutants. Let them debut as idols. This time for mutants." Magneto lowered his head in shame. "This time, for mutants," was what he said. But this time Li Ji's use made him feel a little ashamed. Well, maybe there is a saying that is really true: ugly monsters don't turn on the lights. In this age where beauty and appearance are justice. Chapter 799 X-Men 3.0, A New Generation. Handsomeness is justice, beauty is truth. Li Ji shouted loudly on the stage. He preached his ideas to the young mutants in the audience in an impassioned tone. Katie and others in the audience were confused. Especially the older generation of X-Men didn't quite understand Li Ji's train of thought. For example, Cyclops was pulling his girlfriend Jean Grey and whispering, "What does he mean? What does handsomeness mean? Is justice related to handsomeness?" Jean thought about it and answered in a low voice, "I think what Nightcrawler meant is, what handsome people do is right, that's probably what it means." Huh? Scott was even more confused. But Jean patted his shoulder and continued, "But don't worry, Scott. Because you are still very handsome. At least I like you." Jean smiled and kissed Scott's cheek. Well, since his girlfriend explained it this way, Scott will take it as right. He touched his kissed cheek. Li Ji on the stage continued, "To put it simply, this means that whatever a handsome person does is right." It sounds ridiculous, right? Li Ji's words made the mutants below look at each other in bewilderment. Yes, it is indeed ridiculous. Why should a handsome person be right? This is completely illogical and unconventional. Storm, who was sitting in the audience, raised her hand. "Wait, I don't mean to interrupt you, Nightwalker. It's just that I can't understand the meaning of what you said. Why is being handsome right?" Li Ji shrugged. "It seems that, Storm, you don't chase stars." I said, "Do you have a favorite star? The kind that you like very much?" Storm thought for a while. "Marlon Brando. I like his train named Desire and The Godfather very much." "Well, you are a mature and introverted lady," Li Ji said non-committally after hearing the name of Marlon Brando, "but you can't expect everyone to be as rational as you. Just because you like Marlon Brando doesn't mean that others will like Al Pacino. Do you know that there is a kind of crazy creature in this world? They usually lurk among us ordinary people, but they have incredible power. It's not a mutant ability, but another terrible ability. This ability is called kitchen." Li Ji said seriously, something that the mutants in the audience had never heard of. In fact, when Li Ji introduced it to Professor Charles before, the professor didn't understand it either. So he thought that this lecture could only be handled by Li Ji. Once this kind of people start to be obsessed with something, they are often unreasonable. Whether it is an obsession with idols, stars, or paper wives, they will use an extraordinary perseverance to stick to something and continue for many years. This kind of people are actually very common, but sometimes they are buried very deep. Li Ji began to talk about the key points of this plan. "We need to change the image that traditional mutants give people. I think you should know what the traditional image of mutants is." Li Ji pointed at Storm. "Storm, generally, the news media in the United States promotes uncontrollable dangers, violent factors, bad neighbors in the community, and so on." Li Ji pointed at Jean Grey again. Jean thought for a while. "In some European countries, some tabloids will write other things. For example, they will seize the physical defects that mutants may have and make articles. In order to increase sales, these tabloids like to write something eye-catching." At this time, Katie spoke, "But it seems that the promotion here in China is better. Generally, it promotes the dedication of mutants and so on." Li Ji also watched the Chinese propaganda film for this plan. He wanted to use it as a reference. But after watching it, he felt that it would be better not to watch it. So he looked at Katie and asked, "Do you really want to use the propaganda film of the Central Propaganda Department, or promote it according to their model?" Huh? Katie thought about those very, very high-end propaganda films, and finally gave up. So Li Ji continued, "Well, we all know what kind of propaganda the mainstream Western countries have about mutants. They are alien, unsociable, dangerous, flammable and explosive. That's about it. Facing this kind of propaganda, it is actually very disadvantageous for Tuvalu. Because when someone hates you, she will even find you disgusting just by the way you eat." Li Ji was telling the truth. This is the current situation of mutants. So we need to reverse this image. It may sound ridiculous to say what I said, but it is a very useful truth. People in this world always give extra points to beautiful or cute things. Humans are shallow, and most people look at the appearance but not the inner qualities. Just like when you are looking for a girlfriend, boyfriend, you always look at the beautiful, handsome one first. Give up, we humans are so shallow and ignorant. At least most people are like this. Li Ji said bluntly, "At least the first reason I saw my girlfriend was because she was beautiful. It is because of her beauty that there are all kinds of stories behind her. You may be willing to get to know someone, but if this person is also very attractive, You will be more willing to get to know him, her. So things that seem absurd are actually the simple truths that are closest to the truth of this world. Lee Ji raised his thumb and compared to everyone. Don't think what I said is ridiculous. Forming an idol hero team is the first step you need to take. Let people become fans of you first, and if they don't, please don't let them become passers-by who hate you. Only when the number of fans grows and the number of passers-by who hate you decreases, will people be more willing to get to know mutants. This is called loving the house and loving the dog. Lee Ji gave a specific example. For example, there is a very ordinary mailing mailbox, in Shanghai. Just because a star took a selfie here, this mailbox became an internet celebrity. Countless fans of the star went there to check in and take photos. At the peak of popularity, they even had to queue up for 10 minutes. Even the local district government made special plans and designs for this mailbox, such as adding deer antlers to it. Then it became a tourist attraction in Shanghai. Can you imagine? This is a decision made by a super metropolis with a population of more than 22 million. Lee Ji used a very practical example to explain what the star effect and star agent are. So forming a mutant hero idol team is something you must do. Originally, Professor Charles should have talked to you about this matter. But for various reasons, he asked me to talk about it. Lee Ji pointed at Professor Charles, and the professor dodged. This idea came to me when the professor and I were chatting. We both think this method is very feasible. Tuvalu needs to establish a new national image. In fact, politics is sometimes nonsense. Cultural impact and the establishment of national image are very important and long-term things for a country and a race. Lee Ji said this in a solemn way. You need to get used to facing this kind of things that seem ridiculous, but are actually beneficial to mutants. Because this is politics. So this is a proposal that the professor and I discussed together. You can discuss it. Our initial idea is to set up 2 or 3 hero teams. Capabilities are needed, but appearance is more important. Lee Ji held up a finger. The first team is also the team we want to promote in terms of the number of fans. The main market is for young people, such as young and energetic boys and girls like Katie and Iceman. After all, the future belongs to young people. You need to save the world, but you also need to make other young people think you are cool, so that they are willing to follow your Facebook and Weibo and cheer for you. Some young mutants below chuckled. Lee Ji extended his second finger. The second team, I call it the handsome men team. This team mainly targets the market with a more mature age group. It does not win by youthful vitality, but by calmness and sophistication. This team has the highest requirements in terms of ability. I propose to use middle-aged handsome men like Cyclops Scott and Wolverine Logan as the main force. They have both fighting power and good looks, and focus on the mature market. Mature middle-aged people are not easily instigated like young people, nor are they easy to change their positions and cheer for you. But they are the backbone of modern society. At least their traditional concepts need to be slightly changed. So this team has the heaviest task. As Lee Ji spoke slowly and firmly, the laughter and whispers below became smaller. Lee Ji held up his third finger. The third team, I think it can be called the female hero team. It is composed entirely of female heroes. They are smart and capable, and are not inferior to men in ability. At the same time, they are careful, gentle and have feminine charm. The female hero team can do many things that other heroes cannot do. For example, informal state visits, such as helping children in poor areas and rescuing local medical care, and so on. Women are naturally superior to men in this regard. Members need to show their courage and bravery, but they also need to show their love and compassion. Members are composed of female mutants such as Scylla Oak, Storm, and Jean Grey. I must make it clear here that you must do this voluntarily and with considerable awareness. Because from now on you will become a public figure. Because you are not only a hero, but also an idol representing the country. What you do is related to other people's views of the country. Every little mistake you make will be magnified by others. You may have to suppress your own nature and do all kinds of things you don't want to do. Put on a mask and say those hypocritical and ridiculous words. You can only do what has been arranged for you. Do things that are in line with your idol hero personality. Say things that are in line with your identity. You may even lose yourself in the process and become exhausted. So I want to say in the end that if you don't have enough perseverance, you can't become such an idol hero. Because in addition to saving, you also need to please others, which is cruel. Lee Ji patted the table, and the scene was silent. Now no one whispered, And no one thought this proposal was ridiculous. Because everyone knew that this was not simply to form a ridiculous idol group, but a difficult mission. Becoming an idol hero may sound ridiculous. But behind this ridiculousness, you need to bear the image and future of this race. I hope you can take it seriously. This is not a game, but the beginning of a difficult mission. Want to save mutants? First you need to save yourself. So, let's get started. As soon as Li Ji finished speaking, the whole audience could hear a pin drop. Idol hero? It's not as glorious as it sounds. P.S. I'm still asking for tickets and subscriptions. I have to take the train home again today. Chapter 800. Who is plotting against whom? This incident is undoubtedly the biggest event at the beginning of the new year. Countless media are reprinting this incident. At the same time, the image of the young mutant female president Katie has also been transmitted to all parts of the world through various news media. As Li Ji said, in this era where appearance is justice, Katie's pure and sweet image instantly won the favor of a large number of people. There is no reason, they can't even spell Katie's full name, Katie Pride. But there is such a group of people who have begun to become Katie's fans. They don't care where she comes from, where she goes, or what she wants to do. As long as they know Katie's gorgeous beauty, it's fine. Then the young mutant female president, these key terms, when listed together, instantly ignited the perception of these people. Randomly listing these keywords together can make big news. In fact, the first step of propaganda on the internet has begun. The plan to whitewash mutants has actually begun to launch an offensive under the promotion of Li Ji and with the help of Tuvalu mutants. The Mutant Network Water Army offensive led by Jean Grey has begun the first wave offensive on major portals, forums, etc. around the world. Li Ji's previous statement about forming a new era of X-Men to attract fans sounds like nonsense. But if you think about it carefully, the truth is actually very simple, but easy to understand. So the mutants and Tuvalu have more things to do. But these things must be done by themselves. Want to change the world? Change yourself first. Of course they support it. A member of the US Congress whispered with some dissatisfaction. This means that they can have considerable influence in the newly formed mutant country. They are supporting their own international agents. And in such a despicable way. Well, let's not discuss the justice of this way of the eldest brother scolding the second brother, because everyone is of the same virtue. But the impact of this incident on the world is very far-reaching. Especially in the United States, a considerable number of mutants have begun to have expectations and hopes for Tuvalu. They expect the establishment of Tuvalu to be like the establishment of Israel by the Jews, a brand new beginning. Many mutants who have had private contact will talk about this matter secretly. What is their policy about Tuvalu? What is their philosophy? What attitude will they take towards mutants in other countries? Are they willing to provide a fair environment for other mutants? Of course, the most important point is, do they accept immigrants? In fact, many mutants hope to immigrate. The country has a very strict immigration policy. Although it is relatively open to mutants in its own country, it does not mean that they will open up mutants from other countries at will. Except for some special talents, it is more difficult for mutants from other countries to enter than for ordinary people. If the mutant country established by Tuvalu has a relatively peaceful policy, as long as it does not call on everyone to fight a war or a revolution, there will still be many mutants willing to join. In addition, Li Ji's original plan, that is, to lure the Red Skull to kill Hydra, is also being secretly implemented. Whether it is the Spear Bureau, the Shield Bureau, or the SWORD, they are all secretly fueling the flames. In addition, there are all kinds of media that are not satisfied until they are shocked. They touted this incident as a watershed in human history. This has caused a global attention. Everyone's attention is on Katie. And this is the key to attracting Schmidt. Obviously, when the heat is being hyped up in waves. Especially when many mutants begin to pay attention to and even hope to join Tuvalu, what will happen if the top leader of Tuvalu suddenly dies at this time? More directly, what if she is assassinated in public? Just like Duke Ferdinand of Sarajevo? Schmidt is very familiar with the history of World War I, and the beginning of World War I originated from this assassination. Although it is just a trigger, this trigger has ignited the powder keg of the entire Europe. And what is the biggest powder keg in the world today? New energy has appeared in the world today, and the Middle East war has subsided. Extraterrestrial exploration has begun, and even the SWORD is building the world's first starport. It is foreseeable that the importance of land on Earth will gradually decrease in the future, and everyone will focus on the vast universe. This has weakened regional land conflicts. Although the super high-speed rail is just a beginning, the main purpose is very clear. Increase regional mobility, connect the world to build an integrated Earth city. Let resources be delivered to every corner of the world more fairly. Everything in this world seems to be developing in a good direction. Schmidt feels powerless to catch a flaw. This world does not give him the opportunity to cause chaos. That's why he focuses on mutants. This is not just a personal grudge with Magneto. This is a powder keg that is easy to ignite. Just setting up a mutant brotherhood and letting Magneto's children make big news can indeed cause chaos if it is made public. But the scale of this chaos is limited. It is far from enough for Schmidt to take advantage of the situation. He needs more chaos and more disorder. A bigger explosion. A big explosion that will ignite the world. For example, killing the young female president of Tuvalu and then blaming it all on Magneto? Well, maybe Magneto is not qualified to take the blame. Maybe it can be thrown to the United States? Or use conspiracy theories? Anyway, as long as things are done, there will always be someone to take the blame. Schmidt played a familiar trick during World War II. He has already thought about it. He needs to let Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver make a shocking assassination, and in front of everyone in the world. This time he wants to detonate the most terrible powder keg. Venus, Illuminati base Rogers, this is a little dangerous. Ligi, it's okay, we are ready. Tony, but it's not a good idea to do it now, right? Ligi, don't worry, don't worry. Professor Charles, I still think it's a little bit bad. Thor, can you hurry up? It's just a grilled snake. What's so dangerous about it? If you're afraid of oil splashing on you, you can wait until it's cool before eating. Magneto, are you all holding the celebration party before things are done? His face twitched as he looked at the sizzling grilled beef in front of him. Ligi spread his hands. No, we are just praying for a good omen. Magneto. Ligi pointed to the sizzling beef. This dish is called bombing the Hydra, that's all. After eating, we will work seriously. Magneto. Hank took a bite of snake meat. The protein in snake meat is higher than beef. Let's replenish energy before the war. Then there was the sound of chewing. Magneto. Bermuda, Hydra base, Red Skull Schmidt's private office. Red Skull Schmidt, this time I will burn the world. The flag of Hydra will once again stand on the top of the world. Schmidt clenched his fists. Ha 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 ha. In the Hydra base in Bermuda, the supercomputer inside Hydra is calculating frantically. The Ultron Sentinel is planning his own plan. Who is the cicada in this world? Who is the mantis? Who is the Oriole? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.